Chapter 8:12. If they did not personally open these 100-odd seals, no demon monarch would be able to escape from them. Ha! It is as I guessed. I expected this long ago. Let's wait for him to come out. Are you ready for your plane traveling spell? I prepared it long ago. I'm just waiting for him to come out. The shaking of the heavenly spring had already stopped. However, everyone was still bewildered. They could not understand what was going on, not knowing what was going on. Gurgle, gurgle. Long streams of water bubbles surged up in the center of the pool, attracting everyone's attention. The speed at which the bubbles appeared increased. Eventually, it became frighteningly fast. Everyone's faces sank as they leaped out of the water and hovered in the air, silently circulating their quintessence. Bang! A pillar of water soared into the air. At the top of the pillar was a figure in a sorry state, tumbling through the air. The force of the pillar of water was immense. After this person was tossed high into the air, he quickly fell back into the water, kicking up large golden waves. Xiao Chun looked carefully. This person's attire was that of the mysterious swordsman, Duan Yi, whom he had noticed long ago. Duan Yi's left hand was tightly clenched, like he was holding something incredible. Although Duan Yi could not see it clearly, the light coming from between his fingers and the strength of his clenched fist made it clear with one look that this was not an ordinary item. When Xiao Chun saw this person's face, his pupils could not help but constrict. He exclaimed in shock, "Chu Chaoyan!" In the pool, Chu Chaoyan touched his face and revealed an expression of understanding. He smiled and said, "I nearly forgot." After swallowing the void jade pendant, the disguise lost its effect. Brother Xiao Chun, it has been a long time. There were not many things in the world that could truly shock Xiao Chun. Coincidentally, meeting Chu Chaoyan here was definitely one of them. It had already been more than 2 years since the final battle of the Five-Nation Youth Competition, but Xiao Chun had not met Chu Chaoyan. This was the opponent that had left the deepest impression on Xiao Chun in the Sky Dome realm. Xiao Chun had thought that he would not be able to meet Chu Chaoyan again on the path of cultivation. However, the fortuitous encounters of life were always filled with coincidences. Xiao Chun had not expected to run into Xiao Chun at the Kunlun Mountain Divine Spring in the Kunlun realm. However, at this moment, Chu Chaoyan clearly didn't seem to have come in through the normal way. The strange commotion just now definitely had something to do with him. Diwuk looked around and saw the mysterious object in Chu Chaoyan's left hand. His heart skipped a beat, and he said coldly, "Take out the thing in your hand. I can feel the aura of the deep abyss demonic world from your body. How did you sneak in?" Chu Chaoyan smiled gently and said unhurriedly, "Ha ha, your nose is pretty sharp, about the same as my dog's." Diwuk's face sank, but his eyes remained calm. Ignoring Chu Chaoyan's sarcasm, he said, "This person is definitely a spy of the demon race. He must have an ulterior motive for sneaking into the heavenly spring. Capture him." The 13 deity race genius cultivators shouted, and their bodies gave off a bright light. Strands of golden heavenly sage laws danced around behind them. Together, they looked like a boundless golden sea. A nation of deities rose and fell above the sea. A boundless golden light shone out from the nation. Auspicious yet magical songs rang out endlessly like hymns. The 13 deity race geniuses were like divine soldiers and generals. They all circulated their vast mental energy and combined it with the strength of their physical bodies, sending out deity race martial techniques surging with golden light. Nation of deities, eternal spear. Nation of deities, glorious shield. Nation of deities, glorious shield. Deities nation, holy spear. This seemed to be a combination martial technique. It combined the heavenly sage laws to form the mysterious phenomenon of the divine kingdom. Then it could be unleashed individually. While they looked scattered, they had a common nation linking their auras together. When Xiao Chun saw this, he entered deep thought. The deity race's martial techniques were truly an eye-opener. It looked like there was a reason why they could sweep through the place for so many years. However, there was no panic in Chu Chaoyan's eyes. He looked as calm and collected as before, like he had a way to deal with it, even if the sky collapsed. What an interesting martial technique. However, it is not enough to stop me. A white sword appeared in Xiao Chen's right hand. Ancient talisman scripts were carved on the sword. Chu Chaoyun's left, I lit up with a golden light. His right, I was pitch black like ink. Unexpectedly, he comprehended the will of light and the will of darkness at the same time. The bright multicolored light behind Xiao Chun quickly merged with the boundless black qi, forming an aura of primal chaos at the beginning of the world. He merged the will of light and the will of darkness. Someone among the cultivators hovering in the air exclaimed. Light and darkness were natural opposites. It was already inconceivable that Xiao Chun could comprehend these two wills at the same time. Unexpectedly, he even merged them. How heaven-defying was this? Everlasting Sword Dao's first move, Light of Origin. Chu Chaoyun shouted and flicked his wrist, thrusting his sword forward. Immediately, the sword lit up with a gentle light. Then it merged and shot at the martial technique that the 13 deity race cultivators executed together. The light was not gentle. However, it seemed to be compatible with some kind of supreme great Tao. Everywhere the light passed, it seemed like everything returned to its original state. The martial techniques that the 13 deity race cultivators sent out silently broke down one by one. A light swept out, and the protective divine lights on their bodies vanished. The heavenly sage laws behind Xiao Chun formed a sea, kicking up huge waves. The divine nation bobbed up and down like a small boat in the waves, looking like it would collapse at any moment. Diwuk's expression turned completely grave. The mysterious phenomenon of the divine nation contained the mental origins of the 13 deity race cultivators. If it shattered, the foundations of their cultivations would be severely injured. The divine nation is indestructible, indestructible, and indestructible. Diwuk pointed, and a huge image of a deity descended from the sky. Then, he raised his arm at the same time as Diwuk. Then, he sent out a beam of holy light into the divine nation. Only then did the golden sea stabilize. The tottering nation rose up once more, radiating a bright holy light. The 13 deity race cultivators also glowed with glory as they charged over again. The illusionary figure of the deity possessed a boundless godly aura. The moment it descended, everyone present could feel a tremendous pressure invading their sea of consciousness. It was like hypnosis, speaking of the glory and invincible radiance of the deity. It made everyone feel like prostrating themselves on the ground and kowtowing 9 times. This startled Xiao Chun. Could the master of this image really be a deity? A.O. Jiao, who was in the Immortal spirit ring, smiled and said, "What nonsense deity! It is just the deity race's Emperor Wu. He calls himself a deity to trick ordinary people into giving up their faith and becoming his slaves." Back then, the Thunder King chopped down countless of such things. Seeing the 13 deity race cultivators charging over again, Chu Chaoyun shook his sword and smiled faintly. "You still want to come? Unfortunately, I do not have much time left to play with you all. Let's settle this in one go." Chu Chaoyun shouted, and light and darkness merged behind him, forming an indistinct, chaotic world. That place seemed to be the origin of all things, yet it also seemed like the end of all things. Light and darkness struggled against each other, resonating with each other. Everlasting Sword Dao's second move, Life Without End. Strands of sword light containing boundless life force flowed on the ancient sword. Chu Chaoyun's body extinguished the light and darkness in the air, appearing ethereal and formless. The 13 deity race cultivators, who had just regained their morale, all executed their heaven-ranked martial techniques, trying to block this sword light. In the end, they were shocked to discover that the profoundness and technique of this sword light were vastly different from ordinary martial techniques. The moment the weapons in their hands came into contact with that sword light, the might of the martial techniques they were about to execute skyrocketed. Soon, the horrifying energy it contained scared the 13 deity race cultivators pale. The might of the martial techniques they were about to execute had increased tenfold. However, They could not unleash them. If this continued, it would be a disaster if it exploded. Even a number of divine kingdom statues in the golden sea behind them started to soar uncontrollably. Eventually, they became as dazzling as the blazing sun. No one dared to look at them directly. Diwuk frowned and formed hand seals with both hands. Another holy light struck the number of divine kingdom statues. The golden nation immediately broke apart, turning into 13 beams of light that entered the deity race cultivator's seas of consciousness. Chu Chaoyan felt somewhat disappointed. If Diwuk had been slightly slower, he would have been able to detonate the entire divine kingdom. Then, he would have been able to settle this once and for all. It looked like this Diwuk's judgment and reaction speed were extraordinary. This was a problem. Xiao Chun released 2 fingers from his left hand, which held the mysterious item, and quickly tapped the ancient sword. Then, he quickly retracted it. Bang! 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 13 intense explosions resounded in succession. The 13 deity race cultivators, who were just about to charge over, vomited blood and flew back. When they landed, they coughed miserably. Every time these deity race cultivators coughed, they felt an intense pain in their chests. The golden armor they wore also vanished. Their faces were blasted beyond recognition, riddled with wounds. It was a tragic sight to behold. This was the first time the strong deity race suffered such a severe blow. When the geniuses of the other races saw this mysterious Chu Chaoyan, they all felt fear. Diwuk's expression did not change. A light flickered in the depths of his eyes. No one knew what he was thinking. Suddenly, Xiao Chun said, "He is holding a small piece of the rock of origin." Right after Xiao Chun said that, everyone's expressions changed. The rock of origin. The legendary rock of origin. Unexpectedly, this person snatched away a small piece. Let's attack together. A small piece of the rock of origin is enough for all of us to split evenly. Diwuk leaped up gently and did not say anything more. He took the initiative to charge at Chu Chaoyan. As he flew, a holy light descended from the sky, encasing him. Chu Chaoyan swung his sword in reverse and sent out another boundless life. However, Diwuk's eyes flickered as he formed hand seals. The divine light and aura on Xiao Chen's body all scattered silently. Suddenly, he became an ordinary person who did not know any martial techniques. Chapter 8:13. Diwuk allowed that strange sword light to strike him. In the end, that sword light was like an igniter. A blazing flame immediately rose from Diwuk's body. His aura instantly soared to the clouds. Xiao Chun formed a finger seal, and his sea of consciousness surged. Borrowing this aura, he accumulated his mental energy. A 7-colored pagoda appeared above Chu Chaoyan's head. The pagoda shot down a beam of divine light, trapping Chu Chaoyan within it. Chu Chaoyan swung his sword a few times, but the light screen did not move at all. It was like it was trapped. Strange, right? Why am I fine? The wills of light and darkness are not so easy to merge. Your so-called boundless or Tao is full of flaws in my eyes. Today, you're destined to die here. After sending out a 7-colored pagoda, Diwuk stood in the air and said coldly. Chu Chaoyan smiled faintly and said, "The state of primal chaos is indeed not perfect. However, the endless life is not as simple as you think. Do you think that by temporarily turning yourself into a mortal body, you can avoid it?" Diwuk's expression changed slightly. Before he could react, there was an explosion in his sea of consciousness. He retreated a few steps, and his complexion paled. Chu Chaoyan took advantage of this opportunity and swung his sword horizontally. The 7-colored pagoda immediately shattered, turning into motes of light that scattered in all directions. However, just as the pagoda was broken, the cultivators of the other races charged over. There was no other reason. As long as he had the rock of origin, he had to stay. Furthermore, Diwuk had said that this person's state of primal chaos was not perfect. It was not as invincible as he appeared to be. Shui Lingling gently floated over to Xiao Chen's side. She said, "Don't be in a rush to make a move. Be careful of falling into Diwuk's trap." Xiao Chun tilted his head and glanced at Shui Lingling, who was as delicate as gentle water. What do you mean? Shui Lingling looked at Di Wuck unhappily. She said, this fellow knew from the start that person had the rock of origin. However, he did not say anything. He clearly wants to monopolize the rock of origin. After seeing that this person is harder to deal with, he purposely leaked the news of the rock of origin. He even exposed this person's weakness. He clearly wants to use others to exhaust this person's strength. Shui Lingling's thoughts were indeed meticulous. However, the trick was more complicated than she thought. First Senior Sister is right. Earlier, Di Wuck purposely injured himself, wanting to take advantage of the situation at the last moment. However, I believe that this time his cleverness will backfire. Junior brother Xiao Chun, Shui Lingling said curiously. Lingling smiled mysteriously. Junior brother, Xiao Chun smiled mysteriously and said, just wait and see. All the cultivators who came here were demonic geniuses who comprehended wills. As long as they did not get struck by Chu Chaoyun's life and death art, it would be very difficult for them to fall. Seeing that Chu Chaoyun was at a disadvantage, some of the hesitant cultivators joined in, afraid that when the rock of origin was split, they would not get a share. Aside from Shui Lingling, Yin Shi San, Ying Xiong, and Xiao Chun, the geniuses of the other races all joined in. All sorts of lights flashed in the sky. Fiend race martial techniques, ghost race martial techniques, corpse race martial techniques, and human race martial techniques all appeared. It was hard to imagine that the strongest of the Kunlun realm's younger generation all gathered together to deal with one person. Strangely, the first to make a move, Di Wuck, appeared pale and weak. Instead, he stopped at the periphery of the battlefield. Bang! Surrounded by so many geniuses, Chu Chaoyun finally revealed an opening. The Fiend Race's Tu Zhe landed a palm strike on Chu Chaoyun's chest, and a huge force burst out. This strike knocked Chu Chaoyun back a kilometer. His body tumbled in the air, and blood leaked out of a corner of his lips. Tu Zhe laughed loudly and quickly chased after Chu Chaoyun. He said, "Screw you. Weren't you very awesome? This palm strike of this young master will break at least 3 of your ribs." Tu Zhe moved very quickly, taking the initiative. He left the others in the dust. It looked like he was about to catch up to Chu Chaoyun and snatch the rock of origin. He could not help but be in a good mood. Bang! Tu Zhe seemed to have crashed into something in the air. Furthermore, because he was moving too fast, the impact was not light. Tu Zhe's nose even caved in. Extreme joy turned to sorrow, causing him to cry out in pain. Many thanks for Brother Tu Zhe's palm strike. Di Wuck's voice rang out in the distance. His face was glowing, and he seemed to be in high spirits. He did not look injured at all. However, the white-haired girl, who had been missing all this while, suddenly blocked the group's path. The divine halberd in her hand turned into an invisible wall, blocking everyone's path. The force that Tu Zhe used to crash into the wall was extremely horrifying. However, this invisible wall did not budge at all. One could easily imagine how tough it was. No one would be able to break through it for a while. As they looked at Di Wuck, they could not help but curse. This fellow tricked them again. Chu Chaoyun was sent flying by Tu Zhe's palm strike. He lay sprawled in the air. Before he could stand up, he saw a multicolored light gathering above him. The 7-colored pagoda that Chu Chaoyun's sword strike had already scattered reformed. Now, it gave off a bright divine light and struck at Chu Chaoyun like a lightning bolt. Chu Chaoyun's lips curled up slightly. Even though he faced this lightning strike, his expression remained calm and unruffled. This is a manifestation of the radiant will. I knew long ago that it would not shatter so easily. The light and darkness in Xiao Chen's left and right eyes respectively vanished. The incomplete state of primal chaos behind him also slowly vanished. What replaced Xiao Chen's eyes was a blazing pure golden flame. The instant that the 7-colored pagoda was about to reach him, the heavenly flame surged out and instantly encased the 7-colored pagoda. Di Wuck cried out in pain as he fell from the sky. When he landed heavily on the ground, he started rolling. The white-haired girl, who had been using the holy wall to block the cultivators of the other races, quickly removed it when she saw the situation. Then, she sent out a divine wind and blew away the heavenly flame on the seven-colored pagoda. The white-haired girl raised the divine halberd and held the seven-colored pagoda in her hand. Then, she quickly headed in the direction where Diwuk had landed. Diwuk got up with much difficulty. When he saw a corner of the seven-colored pagoda that had been burned to ashes, he could not help feeling a heartache. He gritted his teeth and spat out two words, heavenly flame. After dealing with the biggest problem, Chu Chaoyan no longer had any misgivings. Chu Chaoyan swept his gaze around, and the vast expanse of heavenly flame turned into sharp arrows, shooting at the geniuses of the various races who were still trying to hit the Rock of Origin. The speed of the golden flame arrows was startlingly fast. Several people could not dodge in time and were struck directly. Their protective quintessence instantly ignited. The cultivators in the air all panicked. They could not extinguish this flame no matter what they did. It could even ignite any secret treasure. Their protective quintessence did not come out at all. Once they exhausted their quintessence, the strange flame would burn them. Among them, Tu Zhe was the unluckiest. Earlier, he had been knocked dizzy. Before he could even protect his body with quintessence, the flame burned his clothes. His hair and eyebrows were all burned off. As he screamed in the air, when he saw that the flame could not be extinguished, he panicked and jumped into the divine spring below. Coincidentally, after Tu Zhe jumped into the divine spring, the flame on his body immediately vanished. However, his entire body was burned until he was completely naked. His hair was gone, his eyebrows were gone, and even his spatial ring was burned away. His clothes were also burned to a golden light. Soon, Tu Zhe's bald head sank into the divine spring. He simply had no face left. When the various cultivators in the air saw that the divine spring had a miraculous effect on the golden flame, they all jumped in as well. They looked at Chu Chaoyan, and no one dared to fly over to stop him. Just when everyone thought that no one dared to make a move, a white figure soared into the air and blocked Chu Chaoyan's path. Naturally, Xiao Chen wanted to fight for the Rock of Origin as well. He would not let Chu Chaoyan take it away so easily. As for that troublesome heavenly flame, others might not have a way to deal with it, but Xiao Chen was somewhat confident. Furthermore, Chu Chaoyan had used so much of the 1/10 of the heavenly flame. There might not be much left. Electric light flashed under Xiao Chen's feet, and he arrived before Chu Chaoyan in one step. He looked at the other party calmly and said, "Hand over the Rock of Origin. Is that possible? The Void Stone is not that easy to find. If you miss this chance, there will not be another." Chu Chaoyan held his sword with one hand. The golden flame in his eyes flickered endlessly, ready to burst forth at any moment. A purple light and a white light appeared in Xiao Chen's left and right eyes. He said, "In that case, make your move. After not seeing you for 2 years, I want to see how much you have grown." Chu Chaoyan smiled calmly and said, "I'm afraid that I will have to disappoint you. My improvement is much greater than yours. I comprehended the will of light and darkness half a year ago. In the end, the one who will defeat you will still be me. Furthermore, I've already grasped half of the 1/10 of the heavenly flame. Do you still dare to block me?" Xiao Chen's expression remained calm as he retorted indifferently, "Why would I not dare?" Whoosh! Chu Chaoyan pointed with his sword, and the remaining golden flames in his eyes spewed out, turning into 2 fire dragons that roared at Xiao Chen. Rustling sounds rang out in the air. Everywhere the fire dragons passed, they left behind large patches of pitch-black space. Even the air was burned. What kind of flame is this? Fortunately, this person did not grasp much of it. If he had more, who could block him? The group of people in the heavenly spring exchanged glances. They had never heard of such a strange flame in the world. This is a heavenly flame. However, it has been lost for many years. It is impossible for it to gather again. If it were a complete heavenly flame, it could even burn a small plane. The red-dressed ghost race girl looked at Xiao Chen in the air and frowned as she spoke. The gazes of the others did not leave Xiao Chen either. Just a tiny bit of the heavenly flame was already very troublesome for them. They really want to know why Xiao Chun did not dare to dodge when faced with so many heavenly flames. Xiao Chun did not panic. He stretched out his hand and pointed. Two beams of light, one purple and one white, quickly came out of his eyes. Then, they chased each other and formed a Taiji yin-yang flame diagram. Chapter 8:14. The two opposing forces of yin and yang merged perfectly with the Taiji diagram. The 8 trigrams, yin-yang for divisions, and all sorts of mysterious phenomena appeared. The entire world seemed to be contained within this mysterious diagram. The 2 fire dragons formed by the heavenly flame crashed into the Taiji yin-yang diagram with a loud bang. The scene of the Taiji yin-yang diagram burning to ashes, as everyone expected, did not appear. On the contrary, the 2 fire dragons formed by the heaven flames suddenly shattered and turned into countless dazzling flames, which flew back into Chu Chaoyun's eyes. Xiao Qin smiled gently. Indeed, the Taiji yin-yang flame diagram could block the heavenly fire. The heavenly fire came from yin and yang. If it could be gathered, it could burn everything in the world. The Taiji yin-yang flame diagram was unprecedented. It combined yin and yang flames. From a certain point of view, it also transcended yin and yang. Chu Chaoyun had already used up more than half of his heavenly fire. Now that he was facing the Taiji yin-yang flame diagram, he was naturally no match for Xiao Chun, who was ready to attack. The result of the heavenly flame shattering left the group of people below dumbfounded. Not only did Xiao Chun not fear the heavenly flame, but he even had the upper hand. Stretching his hand out, Chun Feng pushed out, and the Taiji yin-yang flame diagram pressed down on Chu Chaoyun. All sorts of strange phenomena suddenly appeared in all directions. It was as though a small world was pressing down on him. Surprise flashed in Chu Chaoyun's eyes, but he soon reacted. The wills of light and darkness reappeared as he lashed out with a chaotic sword chi that was a mixture of gold and black. Bang! Bang! The sword chi was like a flood as it continuously struck the Taiji yin-yang flame diagram. Cracks slowly appeared on the diagram. After all, the might of the Taiji yin-yang flame diagram had declined after going against the heavenly flame. It was barely able to withstand the sword chi formed by Chu Chaoyun's dual wills. The instant the Taiji yin-yang, 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 Taiji shouted. With a loud bang, the flame diagram completely shattered, turning into 2 rays of light that entered Xiao Chen's eyes. However, Xiao Chun took advantage of the situation to draw the lunar shadow saber. The purple talisman soared into the sky. When Xiao Chun swung his saber, lightning crackled in the sky, rumbling loudly. It felt like the sky was going to fall. Heavenly lightning tribulation. With the point of the saber, 100 streaks of lightning turned into lightning flood dragons that tore through the clouds. These lightning flood dragons were all formed from talismans and contained an immortal attribute. They were created by copying the supreme divine lightning. Then he swung his sword. The primal chaos behind him materialized the everlasting Sword Dao's 3rd move, Dawn of 1,000 Armies. The chaotic scene behind him materialized the 3rd move of the limitless Sword Dao, Dawn of 1,000 Armies. Streams of chaotic chi merged together to form swords filled with light and darkness chi. When the swords appeared, a violent gale howled and 1,000 swords hummed, causing the space around them to tremble violently. The spirit flame heaven spirit used spirits, sword, and yang chi. 1,000 swords tore and 1,000 swords. 10 swords tore through the air, looking like a vast army sweeping through the battlefield. Overall, Xiao Qin's lightning flood dragon was at a disadvantage. The lightning flood dragon was covered in cuts and bruises. If not for its immortal attribute, it would have been defeated instantly. Overall, Xiao Qin's lightning flood dragon was at a slight disadvantage. The lightning flood dragon was covered in wounds. If not for its immortal attribute, it would have been defeated in an instant. The two flashed in the air and arrived at the center of the chaotic battlefield. Then they started fighting in close combat. Sword light and saber light clashed, clanging endlessly in the air. Lightning flashed and thunder roared. Light and darkness intertwined. As the two fought intensely, the 100 seals on the door of light finally broke. Chu Chaoyun's expression turned grave as he quickly swallowed a black jade pendant that had already dimmed significantly. Kasie, Kasie. 5 pitch-black spatial tears appeared where Xiaoqun stood. The spatial tears spread out and easily crushed the surrounding lightning flood dragons and swords into powder. However, Xiaoqun was still too late. After Chu Chaoyun swallowed the jade pendant, his body immediately turned into nothingness. The 5 Emperor Wus of the various races appeared out of nowhere. When they saw Chu Chaoyun escaping from their hands, their expressions turned somewhat unsightly. The instant they broke the seal, they immediately felt the aura of the demonic world coming from Chu Chaoyun, so they did not hesitate to make a move, instantly tearing space apart. Unexpectedly, Chu Chaoyun still managed to escape. When the 5 Emperor Wus worked together, they could not even block a half-sage. If word of this got out, it would be a big joke. The deity race Emperor Wu said, "If I did not see wrong, he swallowed a void jade pendant, forged from a void stone." The expressions of the other 4 changed slightly. The fiend race Emperor Wu suppressed the berserk aura in his eyes. He said in a cold voice, "It is hard to find a small piece of void stone even in 1,000 years. How much effort would it take to forge a jade pendant out of it? No wonder he could avoid the devouring formation and escape from our hands." It looked like a void stone had a great origin. However, they did not know how Chu Chaoyun obtained it. Xiaoqun thought of something and said, "Seniors, the void jade pendant that he spoke of does not seem to have much effect. Its color has already dimmed significantly. He probably cannot go far." The expression of the white-haired deity race old man in golden armor changed. He said, "Quickly, chase after him. We should have thought of that. The devouring formation will exhaust most of the void jade pendant's energy." Huchi, a light flashed, and the 5 Emperor Wus flew off somewhere, vanishing from everyone's sight. However, Xiaoqun shook his head slightly. He did not think that these people had much of a chance of catching up to Chu Chaoyun. Given Chu Chaoyun's character, he would not come to this dragon's lair or tiger's lair unless he was completely confident. There would definitely be someone outside to receive him. Furthermore, that person would be as strong as Emperor Wu. It might even be possible for the demon monarch to come personally. However, this exchange confirmed Di Wux's judgment. Chu Chaoyun's will of primal chaos was indeed full of openings. It was far from truly merging with the will of primal chaos. However, when it truly merged, how horrifying would its might be? Just thinking about it made one tremble in fear. It was already so horrifying without truly merging it. Once it merged, it would be even more terrifying. In the space-time tunnel of the plane, the mysterious man and woman from earlier looked at Chu Chaoyun with excited expressions. The woman looked pure and pretty. However, there was a charm in her eyes that tugged at one's heartstrings. At first glance, she was like clear water penetrating one's heart and relaxing one's sight and ears. If one took a few more glances, one would unknowingly become engrossed in her, feeling a boundless temptation. There was no need to purposely try to please her. She already possessed an irresistible charm. This woman was none other than the Eros demon Lung Yu, who had spent a long time with Xiaoqun in the Sky Dome realm's boundless deep sea. However, compared to 4 years ago, the current Lung Yu had lost her gentleness. Now, she had gained a domineering air, giving off a vague feeling of being unrivaled. Her aura was even more unfathomable. If Xiaoqun were here, he would definitely be greatly startled. As for that mysterious black-robed man, he was handsome with delicate facial features. However, there was a sinister air in his eyes. From the side, his silhouette actually resembled Xiaoqun somewhat. If Xiaoqun saw it, the shock he would feel would be no less than Lung Yu's. This person was the mysterious church master of the Sky Dome Realm's Dark Church. However, Xiao Chan did not know whether this was his true body or a clone. The mysterious man's lips curled up as he said, somewhat indifferently, "Take it out. Let me see how big the Rock of Origin is after you wasted the priceless Void Jade Pendant. If the Rock of Origin that I obtained is not as valuable as the Void Jade Pendant, then that would be really funny." Lung Yu opened her eyes and looked at Chu Chaoyun with anticipation. Whoosh! Chu Chaoyun smiled gently and released his tightly clenched left hand. Instantly, a dazzling light shone everywhere. The mysterious man and Lung Yu could not help but squint slightly. When Chu Chaoyun squinted and looked through the rings of light, he saw an azure-colored stone the size of a pinky lying quietly in his palm. All the light was coming from there. The stone was very small. Calling it the size of a pinky was actually an exaggeration. However, the mysterious man and Lung Yu could not help laughing, clearly pleasantly surprised. Originally, I was planning for the worst. You only brought back one light of origin. Unexpectedly, it is such a big piece. It is more than enough for the three of us to split evenly, Lung Yu said warmly. A light flashed in the mysterious man's eyes, and he revealed an evil air. He smiled and said, "Split evenly? What did I say that we would split evenly? I want at least 70%. As for the remaining 30%, you can decide for yourselves." Lung Yu frowned slightly, and her expression turned cold. She said, "Tung Xiao, don't go overboard." Chu Chaoyun's expression did not change. It was like he had expected this mysterious man to say that. He did not argue with him. A golden flame started to gather in the depths of his eyes as he looked at the other party indifferently. The black-robed man smiled sinisterly and said, "Lung Yu, do you think you can regain the position of Demon Monarch without me establishing a connection with the Dark Church's headquarters? Can you recover your strength? Right now, I don't even know where he is, still hiding from your sister's pursuit." Then, the black-robed man looked at Chu Chaoyun and said, "You too, don't think that you are undefeatable just because you have a tenth of the heavenly flame. In the eyes of high-ranked cultivators, the heavenly flame in your eyes that can burn everything is just a joke. I'm already thinking very highly of you by giving you 30%. Chu Chaoyun glanced at the chaotic, crisscrossing patterns of time and space that formed a barrier. Then, he said casually, "Since you do not want to negotiate properly, then you might as well not take it." After Chu Chaoyun spoke, he tossed the Rock of Origin in his hand toward the barrier of time and space. If it really fell into the flow of time and space, even Emperor Wu would not be able to retrieve it. The black-robed man's expression turned startled. His figure flashed, and before the Rock of Origin touched the barrier, he caught it by a hair's breadth. In the end, when the black-robed man looked at it, he discovered that it was just an ordinary rock. The true Rock of Origin was still in Chu Chaoyun's hand. Chu Chaoyun was smiling at him meaningfully. Rage flashed in the black-robed man's eyes. He said sullenly, "I want at least 50%. Otherwise, who knows how long it will take to undo the seal on my body." Lung Yu thought for a while and said, "I want 30%. Right now, my strength is not at its peak yet. Otherwise, I will not be confident of completing the Dark Church's mission during the demonic god blood sacrifice." Chapter 8:15. Chu Chaoyun said, "I'll give you 40%. I only need 10%. If I bury all of the Stone of Origin, I won't be able to merge the two wills." Lung Yu was slightly taken aback. Then, she said, "Thank you." In the sky above Kunlun Mountain, the five Emperor Wus looked at each other. Although they had received Xiao Qin's reminder and chased after Chu Chaoyun as quickly as possible, they were still one step too late. They could only watch helplessly as a planar shuttle formation, which had been prepared in advance, opened a space-time channel and sent Chu Chaoyun back. The Fiend Race's Emperor Wu sighed and said, "The next demonic god blood sacrifice would not be too far away. This incident is just a prelude. I wonder which domain they will target and how many demon monarchs will come." The human race's Emperor Wu in Bushin Palace did not look too good. The deity race's Emperor Wu was relatively calm. The deity race was not worried about the demonic god blood sacrifice. With the deity race's current strength, they would not target the deity race unless the demon world's people were crazy. However, according to the agreement between the 5 races, they had to send people to other domains. At that time, it was inevitable that there would be casualties. It was possible that some martial emperor experts would fall. So, they had to make preparations. Let's disperse. The Void Stone is not that easy to find. Similar incidents will not happen again in the future. That bit of stone of origin will not affect the foundation. The deity race's Emperor Wu concluded this matter. When the other 4 heard this, they did not refute. This matter was neither big nor small. Since the deity race's Emperor Wu said this, it was clear that he wanted to deal with this matter in a low-key manner. Otherwise, if the 5 of them guarded the Stone of Origin, it would be hard to explain to their own races if someone made a fuss about it. The appearance of Chu Chaoyan completely disrupted Di Wux's original plan. Naturally, the matter of chasing them away was left unsettled. After 4 hours, everyone received a gag order regarding the Stone of Origin. They were not allowed to divulge what had happened today. Otherwise, they would be severely punished regardless of their status. The matter of the heavenly dew divine spring came to an end here. By relying on the advantage of the purple thunder divine incantation, Xiao Chun became the person who benefited the most from this trip. Even if it was Di Wuk and the divine lady of the god race, the total amount of essence they had absorbed from the divine spring was still less than what he had absorbed. The matter of Chu Chaoyan was sealed. However, the matter of Xiao Chun shattering the combined attack of 13 deity race half-sages with one roar and confronting Di Wuk spread, whether intentionally or not. The news of the Qing Emperor's descendants reappearing quickly spread throughout the entire Kunlun realm. The descendant of the human emperor from 10,000 years ago, the Qing Emperor who led the Bushan Palace to sweep the world, reappeared in the Kunlun realm, appearing in a domineering manner during the Age of Geniuses 10,000 years later. The wheels of history turned. Would the descendant of the legend rise up again? This became the focus of many people's discussions. Some of the factions that were once enemies of the Qing Emperor also placed Xiao Chun on their watch list. Several radical factions even prepared to make a move on Xiao Chun. For example, the 3 sovereign noble clans of the human race, who feared the Qing Emperor, gathered together and discussed how to deal with Xiao Chun. However, they were all in agreement. The Kunlun realm, which was already chaotic enough, appeared peaceful on the surface, but the undercurrents seemed to be even more intense. A small piece of the Rock of Origin had been stolen, and the demonic god blood sacrifice was approaching. Furthermore, the Age of Geniuses coincided with the appearance of the Qing Emperor's descendants. The internal strife between the 5 races was slowly building up. Everyone wanted to strengthen the strength of their clans before the demonic god blood sacrifice. It was foreseeable that the competition for resources among the 5 clans would become more intense. However, this did not have much to do with Xiao Chun for now. Right now, all his thoughts were focused on enjoying the benefits of his improved aptitude and comprehension ability day and night. The Haotian city was surrounded by mountains. The undulating mountain ranges went on endlessly. Many man-made structures could be seen on the many peaks. No one knew the original name of this mountain range. After the Haotian ancestor established the sect here, it was called the Haotian Mountain Range. Most of the places where sects were established had high-ranked spirit veins. Naturally, the Haotian Mountain Range was no exception. Aside from the Holy Spirit Mountain Range, which the Haotian sect used to establish the sect, several other mountain peaks also had a peak spirit vein under them after accumulating resources in the starry heavens over the years. This made the entire mountain range look even more majestic, stirring up the mysteries of heaven. A peak spirit vein could produce superior grade spirit stones on a large scale. Occasionally, it could even produce some peak grade spirit stones. If placed in the Sky Dome realm, one could immediately establish a sect even larger than the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. The Haotian sect would only reward such a mountain peak to the inner sect elders who had made great contributions to the sect. What was considered a great contribution? For example, creating a new heaven-ranked martial technique for the sect disciples to practice. For example, having a special talent in refining medicinal pills or blacksmiths could provide a steady stream of support to the sect. Another example was accepting a powerful disciple, bringing great luck to the sect, or killing the sect's mortal enemy, restoring the sect's prestige. Without exception, these were all conditions that regular martial sages would find very difficult to accomplish. Hence, a mountain peak with a peak spirit vein under it was a symbol of status among the inner sect elders. At this moment, a white-clad man stood calmly at the summit of a mountain peak with a peak spirit vein. A medallion hung at his waist, showing that he was the master of this mountain peak. A cool breeze blew, and one could grab a white cloud by stretching out one's hand. This white-clad man was none other than Xiao Chun. The Haotian Pavilion had made an exception to give this mountain peak, with a peak spirit vein, to Xiao Chun, be it obtaining the first rank of the proud son of heaven ranking, bringing glory to the sect, or soaking in the heavenly dew divine spring, bringing practical benefits to the sect. Xiao Chun was worthy of this mountain peak. Whether it was soaking in the heavenly dew divine spring or the practical benefits he brought to the sect, Xiao Chun was worthy of this mountain peak. When Xiao Chun learned of the sect's reward, he accepted it without any hesitation. He only sent away the disciples who served him on the mountain peak. The stronger one's aptitude, the faster one's cultivation speed. Cultivating in a peak spirit vein was much more efficient than cultivating in other low-rank spirit veins. Now that Xiao Chun was in a rush to advance to martial sage, how could he refuse? Furthermore, he did not feel that he had anything to be ashamed of. Looking at the churning clouds in front, Xiao Chun had a thought. His forehead flickered, and a purple lightning talisman flew out into the sky. With a flip of his hand, Xiao Chun drew the lunar shadow saber. Thunder roared, and 200 bolts of lightning tore through the sky. The heavenly sage laws in his body slowly infused into the saber. The 200 bolts of lightning instantly turned into lightning flood dragons, roaring ferociously as they weaved through the clouds. It looks like the effects of this 1 month of cultivation are indeed significant. I can already materialize 200 lightning flood dragons, double the previous number. Xiao Chun revealed a faint smile as he sheathed his saber. In that instant, the lightning flood dragons turned into sparks of electricity and reformed into a purple talisman. The brand new lightning tribulation saber technique was materialized with this talisman as the core. Although there was only 10% of this immortal will of thunder, Xiao Chun was far from using it all up. He still had at least a third left. The main reason was that his cultivation was insufficient. If his cultivation were sufficient, he could easily materialize another 100 lightning flood dragons. His cultivation and this complemented each other. Right now, his cultivation could not keep up with his will. He had a treasure trove, but he could not fully utilize it. When Xiao Chun's cultivation increased, he would force his will to raise its level. Otherwise, the might of the lightning tribulation saber technique will be limited due to the insufficient level of his will. This cycle continued without end. The might of the lightning tribulation saber technique could be continuously raised, accompanying Xiao Chun as he advanced on the martial Tao. With the lightning tribulation saber technique as a supplement, the dragon subduing slash as the final move, the physical body's techniques, and his greatest trump card, the Taiji Yin-Yang flame diagram, these are some of the martial techniques that Xiao Chun could use to shock the crowd. However, Xiao Chun felt that it was still insufficient. If he came across other ancient martial techniques in the future, he could try them out. Although it was not good to bite off more than one could chew, as long as he grasped it well, the more trump cards he had, the better. Xiao Chun closed his eyes once again. Then, he placed the lunar shadow saber beside him and entered into cultivation once more. The spiritual energy absorbed from the peak spirit vein in the clouds turned into beams of tricolored light and entered Xiao Chun's body. The mountain summit, the cool breeze, the clouds, the tricolored light, and the white-robed figure sitting cross-legged formed a peaceful painting. Time slowly went by. As Xiao Chun cultivated on this mountain summit, His cultivation seemed to change by the day. The benefits of strengthening his aptitude were completely revealed at this moment. Xiaoqian's cultivation speed was more than twice as fast as before. Of course, this was also due to the higher grade of the spirit vein he absorbed. If it were a weaker spirit vein, there would not be such a horrifying effect. Amid the haziness, that door of sages became increasingly clear in Xiaoqian's mind. The door was already gently pushed open, and beams of light came out from within. There was also the majestic voice of a sage, sounding like the bell of the great Tao, ringing continuously. As long as one pushed open this door of sages, one would be able to advance to martial sage, transcending mortality. However, this step was blocked by 90% of cultivators. It was as difficult as ascending to heaven. There was no concept of time when cultivating. After an unknown amount of time, Xiaoqian's heart skipped a beat. Suddenly, he discovered that his cultivation was stuck. The feeling of advancing by leaps and bounds was gone. After cultivating for a day, his growth was limited. However, Xiaoqian was not startled. Instead, he rejoiced. The bottleneck of half-sage had finally arrived. Now, his cultivation had finally reached peak half-sage. Suddenly, Xiaoqian opened his eyes, and a bright light shone in them. He stretched out his hand and drew the lunar shadow saber beside him. Then, he drew it out of the scabbard. After the electric light flashed, 300 ferocious lightning flood dragons descended from the sky, playing around in the clouds. As they bared their fangs and claws, the electric light they gave off was like sharp, treasured sabers. Xiaoqian grasped the lunar shadow saber and leaped down from the mountain summit. Then, he hacked at a desolate mountain about 5 kilometers in front. Heavenly lightning tribulation. Feeling Xiaoqian's rage, the lightning flood dragons soared in the direction the saber pointed. The 3-kilometer-tall mountain peak suddenly exploded into powder with a crisp sound. Chapter 8:16. Electric light flashed and shattered the powder into nothing. Half of a 3-kilometer-tall mountain disappeared before Xiaoqian's eyes. Only half of the mountainside, which was full of desolation, was left standing alone. As he stood in the air, Xiaoqian entered deep thought. He felt that the wool talisman still had some power left. However, his cultivation had already reached a bottleneck. No matter what, he would not be able to use it. 300 lightning flood dragons was already the greatest might that the lightning tribulation saber technique could bring out. Ao Jiao, how long have I been in closed-door cultivation? Xiaoqian asked Ao Jiao, who was in the Immortal spirit ring, as he sheathed his saber and landed on the mountain summit. Ao Jiao counted on her fingers and replied, about 3 months. After Xiaoqian heard that, his expression could not help but turn strange. Adding the time spent on returning from Kunlun Mountain, that was about 4 months. Ying Xiong told Xiaoqian that he needed only 2 months to complete the breaking sage pill and the other main ingredients. However, there had been no news even after so long. Could it be that there was an accident? The saint-breaking pill was the key to him becoming a saint in advance. Under normal circumstances, if he did not have the saint-breaking pill, he would have died. Without the breaking sage pill, Xiaoqian would not be able to clear this hurdle without 2 years of accumulation. I hope nothing happened. Otherwise, I can only advance the purple thunder divine incantation in advance. Xiaoqian collected his thoughts. An electric light leaped under his feet. With a few flashes, he arrived at a courtyard on the mountainside. Unexpectedly, a superior-grade martial monarch Haoyan's sect disciple stood quietly in front of the courtyard. This person seemed to have been here for a long time. When he saw Xiaoqian arrive, he revealed a respectful expression. He said, "Intersect disciple Wu can greet senior brother Xiao." Right now, Xiaoqian was like a legend in the Haoyan sect. His position in the hearts of many disciples even surpassed that of their first senior sister. The respectful expression on this person's face was genuine. This was especially so when he felt the formless pressure from Xiaoqian. He did not dare to show any disrespect. After thinking for a while, Xiaoqian could not remember this person. He said calmly, "Are you looking for me for something?" Or are you here to pass on a message for that senior? Wukan smiled and said, Senior brother, Xiao Chen's guess is very accurate. I am here to pass on a message for my master. He said that he found the item you asked for. Xiao Chen thought for a while and recalled what was going on. He said, Your master is the Intersex Pill Pavilion's Elder Pong, right? Wukan nodded and said, That is my master. Senior brother Xiao Chun asked my master to keep an eye out for the yellow tune grass and golden sun Ganoderma. If senior brother has time, you can go and collect them. Aside from the flaming sun fruit, the 3 holy masters grass, and the heaven dragon flower, there were also some other ingredients. Although they were not as hard to find as these 3 main ingredients and could not be found outside of public auctions, it was still rather troublesome to search for them. Given Xiao Chen's energy, if he spent the time to search for them, it would take him a long time. To avoid trouble, Xiao Chen had Shui Lingling pull some strings and entrusted this matter to an elder of the pill refining hall. Given Xiao Chen's energy, if he spent the time to search for it, it would take him a long time. To avoid trouble, Xiao Chen asked Shui Lingling to pull some strings, entrusting this matter to an elder of the pill refining room. This elder's name was Peng Dan. He was a peak inferior grade martial sage. His attainments in alchemy were rather high. He had even invented a few high-ranked medicinal pills. This elder also had a peak that suppressed a peak spirit vein. There were hundreds of disciples and thousands of servants there, all of whom listened to his orders. Many thanks. I just came out of closed-door cultivation. After resting for a while, I will personally pay Elder Peng a visit. Xiao Chun guessed that this person had already waited for a long time. He felt very apologetic, so he gave the other party 10,000 astral coins as a small token of gratitude. Wu Chen put it off for a while before accepting Xiao Chen's token of gratitude with a smile. Receiving 10,000 astral coins for passing on a message was a great bargain. When Xiao Chen arrived at the courtyard, the first thing he did was to prepare a table of cooked food for himself. After that, he took a bath and did not linger, rushing directly to the peak where Elder Peng Dan was. It was also a peak, but Elder Peng's peak was very well maintained. It was built on a mountain and did not spoil the overall beauty of the peak. Figures could be seen in the various buildings. Some were chatting, some were moving around in a hurry, and some were exchanging moves. Xiao Chun thought about his own peak. Compared to this, it was like a barren mountain. He could not help but smile bitterly. There was a disciple in charge of receiving guests at the middle of the mountain. After Xiao Chun reported his identity, he was immediately invited up respectfully. Then, he met Elder Peng in an exquisite pavilion. There were 2 rectangular brocade boxes on the wooden table in the pavilion. These should contain the yellow song grass and golden sun Ganoderma that Xiao Chen needed. When Peng Dan saw Xiao Chen arrive, he stood up and welcomed him. He smiled warmly and said, Little brother Xiao Chen, you finally arrived. I found what you wanted. Please check it. Xiao Chen opened the brocade boxes on the table and checked them. There were indeed yellow songgrass and golden sun Ganoderma. Furthermore, there were 2 of them. Xiao Chen took out the 500,000 astral coins that he had prepared and handed them to the other party. Then, he thanked him again. The 2 chatted for a while. Elder Peng casually asked about the effects of the yellow song grass and golden sun Ganoderma that Xiao Chen needed. However, Xiao Chen brushed it off perfunctorily. Peng Dan did not ask too much. However, when Xiao Chen was about to leave, he mentioned something else. He said, Xiao Chen, do you have any free time the next 2 months? This old man has something to ask of you. Xiao Chen felt surprised. He said, Elder Peng, what is it? Why don't you tell me first? Peng Dan picked up the teacup on the table and took a sip. Then he said, I heard that you had a strange martial technique in Kunlun Mountain that blocked the heavenly flame. Most people would not know about Chu Chaoyun's appearance in the heavenly dew divine spring. However, there was no such thing as an impenetrable wall. Given Peng Dan's status, it was not strange for him to know the inside story. Xiao Chen's expression did not change. He smiled and said, I was just lucky. The rumors were exaggerated. Peng Dan smiled faintly and said, There is no need to be humble. I know very well whether it was luck or not. Let me tell you about myself first. Although this old man focuses on alchemy, My cultivation and combat prowess are not much weaker than martial sages of the same rank. I am not boasting. Using certain methods, some medial-grade martial sages have died at my hands. Normally, when this old man is free, I will go out on experiential training with some good friends. Xiao Qian's heart skipped a beat. He gave this old man a meaningful look. This person was definitely not a demonic genius cultivator. It was definitely not that simple to cross realms to fight as a martial sage. If what Peng Dan said was true, then he was really hiding his strength. The most recent time I went out was to explore the place where an ancient sovereign martial emperor passed away with a few good friends. During the ancient era, this sovereign martial emperor was a notorious evil cultivator. It would not be wrong to say that he was the master of the evil cultivators. The loose cultivators of later generations addressed him as the evil king. When Xiao Qian heard the last sentence, his heart skipped a beat. Unexpectedly, it was the place where the evil king passed away. Was that true? However, Xiao Qian's mental state far surpassed that of ordinary people. He only showed slight shock. He did not show no reaction or shock, reacting like a normal person. The ancient evil king is indeed very famous. I heard about the matter of the 7 thrones when I was in the Sky Dome realm, Xiao Qian said, adding, Elder Peng must have had a great harvest. A look of pity flashed in Peng Dan's eyes. He smiled bitterly and said, How could there be anything? A few old friends, and I broke through several restrictions along the way. In the end, we were blocked by a strange flame that resembled a heavenly flame. We were unable to truly enter the evil king's resting place. Xiao Qian gently tapped the table with his right hand and frowned. A strange flame that looked like the heavenly fire. In other words, that flame was not the heavenly fire. The heavenly flame had a very distinct characteristic. Given the experience of Elder Peng and his companions, they would definitely be able to recognize it. If it wasn't the heavenly flame, then what kind of flame could it be that could block a group of martial sage experts? Suddenly, Xiao Qian's thoughts changed. He looked at Elder Peng. Could it be that the other party is targeting me? That would be a huge misunderstanding. The Taiji yin-yang flame diagram could block the heavenly fire completely because it also jumped out of yin and yang. When it faced other flames, there would be nothing special about it. If it was a flame that even a peak inferior grade martial sage could not extinguish, it would not be able to do so. Given Xiao Qian's current cultivation level, he probably would not be able to extinguish it. However, he should be able to make use of the special characteristics of the yin-yang flame diagram to temporarily suppress the flames. Xiao Qian obviously wouldn't reveal this so quickly. He had 2 thrones left behind by the evil king, so he was very concerned about the place where the evil king had died. Peng Dan met Xiao Qian's gaze and said, Looks like you've already guessed what I mean. Are you interested? If you are, you can have a share of the treasures left behind by the evil king. Xiao Qian was not in a hurry to answer. He asked, Are you sure it's the place where the evil king passed away? Peng Dan said, I'm 100% sure. The initiator this time is the descendant of the sect that the evil king founded. However, this sect is no longer able to make a name for itself. It is in the midst of a storm in the primal chaos domain and could collapse at any moment. If it wasn't for the fact that the sect is about to be destroyed, my old friend wouldn't have gone against the teachings of our ancestors and disturbed the resting place of our ancestors. Elder Peng was more than 200 years old. He was not someone who could be easily fooled, since he said that it had to be the place where the evil king passed away. However, accompanying a group of older generation cultivators to search for treasures was a headache. The cultivations of this group of people were probably about the same as Elder Peng's. There might even be medial-grade martial sages. Now that Xiao Qian's cultivation had improved, he could probably protect himself from Elder Peng at best. However, he would not stand a chance against a medial-grade martial sage. If that medial-grade martial sage got greedy at the sight of wealth, it would be problematic. Xiao Qian did not believe that Elder Peng could handle the situation alone. Xiao Qian put these thoughts aside for now. He replied, Honestly speaking, I do have some tricks on my sleeves. I should be able to seal this flame temporarily. However, I'm not completely confident that I can do it. Peng Dan waved his hand and said, "That's not a problem. After our previous failure, we agreed to look for a way to break this flame on our own and try again. I've thought of some methods as well. My other old friends should have some as well. Come with me 3 days from now. If we succeed, we will succeed. If not, there are still other ways." Chapter 8:17. Xiaochen did not rush to agree. He asked where the evil king had passed away, how long it would take to return, and how dangerous it would be. Then, he expressed that he would think about the details for a day before deciding. After returning to his courtyard, Xiaochen took out the brocade boxes containing the yellow tune grass and the golden sun Ganoderma. He had already prepared all the other ingredients for the breaking sage pills alchemic recipe. He only lacked the 3 main ingredients before he could refine it. Xiaochen looked at the 2 brocade boxes and thought for a long time. Ying Xiong had passed the appointed time and had not delivered the 3 main ingredients yet. There were only 2 reasons for this. First, something unexpected had happened. She had not collected the flaming sun fruit, the 3 holy masters' grass, and the heaven dragon flower. Second, she had already found another way to advance to martial sage and did not need the other core painting piece for the great rock spreading wings painting. Regardless of the reason, Xiaochen had a plan ahead. He could not hang on to one tree. I'll wait for the last 2 months. If there is still no news by the time I return, I'll give up. After putting away the brocade boxes, Xiaochen sat at the table and frowned heavily. Then he took out the 2 inferior grade astral cores. The white astral cores contained a surging, horrifying energy. Astral cores could be used in all sorts of warships, formations, spirit weapons, secret treasures, and spirit weapons. They were very useful. However, Xiaochen was thinking of another way to use them. He wanted to ignite them and cause an explosion. If they were caught off guard, they could kill a half-sage. If an inferior grade martial sage was severely injured, a peak inferior grade martial sage would only be injured. Xiaochen toyed with the 2 astral cores in his hand for a while before casually placing them aside. Although they were powerful, they were not as effective as he wanted them to be. After searching the universe ring for a while, Xiaochen took out a golden savage ox sculpture. When he saw the exquisite sculpture, he smiled faintly. Now, this sculpture was no longer useful. With a thought, Xiaochen took out the sage-grade pagoda in his body and placed it on the table. Initially, the sage-grade pagoda had looked very powerful. However, now that he used it, he understood why those martial sages did not want this secret treasure. The sage-grade pagoda contained too few heavenly sage laws, and its defenses were not very strong. Xiaochen thought for a while and felt that he could modify this sage-grade pagoda, so he placed it beside the astral core. After some thought, a palm sword burning with a lightning-attributed flame flew out. Xiaochen revealed an expression of regret. However, he still placed it beside the golden savage ox sculpture. He hadn't used it much after he cultivated it, and when he really thought about it, he realized that the grade of it wasn't high enough. "Xiaochen, what are you doing?" Ao Jiao asked curiously when she saw Xiaochen's actions. Xiaochen continued searching the universe ring. He replied casually, "I am looking for some things. I want to see if there are any trump cards that I can use when the time comes." Xiaochen took out a small. After that, Xiao ended it to say. Xiao had Chun was to say. Then Xiaochen said, "I keep feeling that Elder Peng did not tell us everything. The evil king's final resting place is not that simple. Perhaps." Xiaochen nodded and said, "Perhaps. However, no matter what, I have to make a trip because of the evil king's name. It does not matter if I cannot obtain anything. I must obtain the secret of the 7 thrones." Xiaochen nodded and said, "Perhaps. However, no matter what, I have to make a trip just because of the words evil king. It does not matter if I cannot obtain anything. I must obtain the secret of the 7 thrones. However, if he truly merged them, he would be in big trouble. Against a will of primal chaos that was close to the truth of the great Tao, Xiaochen would not be a match for it. However, if he truly merged them, he would be in big trouble. Against a will of primal chaos that was close to the truth of the great Tao, Xiaochen would not be a match for it. Although Xiao Chun knew that it would not be easy for the other party to merge the will of light and the will of darkness. Even if he succeeded, he would be nothing before Chu Chaoyan. Hope for the best and plan for the worst. This was how Xiao Chun had always been. Hence, he had to try the state of cycle formed by the merging of the 7 thrones in the future. Otherwise, he would not be able to pass on the will of another will to resist the will of primal chaos. After fiddling around for a long time, Xiao Chun was somewhat disappointed to discover that there were practically no external items that could be used as a trump card. Hey! Suddenly, Xiao Chun was stunned. He found a simple and unadorned metal bow in a corner of the universe ring. The words Soul Slayer were carved on the handle. Xiao Chun's expression changed, revealing an expression of joy. He could not wait to grab the bow and rush out excitedly. Xiao Chun casually found an arrow and knocked it. All the energy in his body surged like a gushing river. Then, he slowly pulled the bowstring back. Unexpectedly, the strenuous feeling from many years ago was still present. With a casual punch, Xiao Chun could exert 1,600,000 kilograms of force. He could not immediately pull the bowstring back into the shape of a full moon. It looked like the saying, "The greater the strength, the greater the might," was true. Xiao Chun used half his strength. Then, he let go, and the arrow flew out. Whoosh! The speed of the arrow was so fast that it did not leave a shadow. It was even faster than the saber chi that Xiao Chun sent out. However, it only traveled half the distance. The material of the arrow was too poor. It could not withstand the force and exploded in the air. The shock waves from the explosion spread out, and the dense forest in front instantly turned to dust. An empty space appeared before Xiao Chun. A smile appeared on Xiao Chun's face as he put down the Soul Slayer bow. He muttered to himself, "I finally found a pretty good trump card. However, I have to ask First Senior Sister for some arrows. Otherwise, I will not be able to use them." After returning to the room in the courtyard, Xiao Chun could not find anything else. Then he thought of something. His arm flashed, and a void projection painting appeared in his palm. There was a blood-red lotus flower in the painting. It looked tender and beautiful, exuding a strong, fiendish aura. This was a magic treasure with the ancient ferocious flame, the scarlet blood frost flame. Of course, it was a copy and not the original. Lung Yu had spent a lot of effort on this magic treasure. Xiao Chun had always been reluctant to use it. If he could avoid using it this time, Xiao Chun would do his best not to. As Xiao Chun looked at this painting, he could not help but think of Lung Yu's face. He wondered where this Eros demon, who was full of secrets, was now. Back then, without Lung Yu's charm techniques, Xiao Chun could not have truly grasped the state of massacre. Then, Xiao Chun looked at the table and put away all the things around the golden savage ox statue. He had no use for them. Then he slowly took stock of the other things. There were 2 inferior-grade astral cores. They were pretty strong, but they still needed to be refined. Their heavenly laws would not have any offensive power. Although the sage-grade pagoda was of little value, Xiao Chun could only rely on it for now. He would have to spend some astral coins to strengthen it. The puppet snake was not very valuable. However, it had the ability to drill into the ground. Perhaps it would have a miraculous effect. As for the 2 inferior-grade astral cores, Xiao Chun spent an entire night using the will talisman to baptize them in a soul-stirring manner. The Soul Slayer bow was an important treasure among important treasures. Once Xiao Chun obtained the corresponding arrows, it would be a trump card that could deter peak inferior-grade martial sages. The scarlet blood frost flame in the void projection painting was very powerful. However, it was too special and best not to use it. Otherwise, if it was exposed and others discovered that it was a magic treasure, he would be in big trouble. These were the trump cards that Xiao Chun could use on this trip. Some of them required a lot of money to refine. He could not be stingy with his astral coins for the next 2 days. He handed the sage-grade pagoda to the refining pavilion's pavilion master to upgrade it personally. As for the arrows for the Soul Slayer bow, Xiao Chun obtained the highest-ranked Star Scar arrow from his first senior sister. 10,000 astral coins could buy one. Xiao Chun spent 5 million astral coins, emptying out the sec stock that could be sold. On the last day, Xiao Chen managed to carve several things on a piece of spiritual wood that he bought. Finally, before Peng Dan, Xiao Chen felt more confident. "How is it? Little friend, have you thought it through?" Peng Dan asked with a smile on his face. A hard-to-detect look of anticipation flashed in his eyes. Xiao Chen did not show any joy or sorrow. He nodded and said, "I've thought it through. I've decided to take a gamble." Peng Dan stood up and said, "Good. Actually, this trip is quite dangerous. However, just follow behind us. You do not need to do anything along the way. You just need to come out when you run into that strange flame. I think you should be fine." Peng Dan took out rank 3 medicinal pills and said, "These 3 bottles of medicinal pills can be considered a greeting gift from this old man to little friend. They are all peak rank 9 medicinal pills. 1 bottle detoxifies poison, 1 bottle treats internal injuries, and 1 bottle treats external injuries. They all have markings on them." Xiao Chen cursed in his heart. If he did not agree, this old man would probably never give him a greeting gift again. However, these medicinal pills did have some value. After Xiao Chen received them, he thanked Peng Dan. Peng Dan waved his hand and said, "Let's go. We will meet up with our old friends first. At that time, if there are any strange people, little friend should try to keep your mouth shut. If there is anything to take note of, I will send you a voice projection to let you know." The place where the evil king died was not in the Tianwu domain. Instead, it was a desolate land between the primal chaos domain and the chaotic demonic sea. That place was rather famous in the Kunlun realm. The soil there was a dull yellow, not suitable for normal plants. Instead, it was filled with strange and dangerous plants. This place was known as the Yellow Soil Demonic Garden. Although it was called a demonic garden, it was astonishingly large, comparable to the savage battlefield in the Tianwu domain. However, there were no forbidden lands or immortal sect remnants in there. It was filled with plants that killed people. These plants all possessed intelligence. When some cultivated to great perfection, they could even rival the human race's Emperor Wu. Rumor had it that one of the 3 wondrous trees of the world, the undying tree, grew in the Yellow Soil Demonic Garden. However, it was hard to verify whether this was true or not. Some people claimed that they had seen the legendary undying tree with their own eyes. However, when everyone arrived at the location that they mentioned, they did not discover anything. Such things happened frequently. However, when they actually arrived, they did not discover anything. Even now, there was no conclusion. There were many other strange places in the Yellow Soil Demonic Garden. For example, its 4 seasons were very different from other places. The 4 seasons would cycle only once every 100 years. When autumn arrived, the fruits of several plants would ripen. This would attract many cultivators from the primal chaos domain and the merfolk living in the chaotic demonic sea to come ashore to search for them. Above the Yellow Soil Demonic Garden, there were storms that did not scatter all year round. If cultivators wanted to fly over, they would have to expend a lot of energy. It was practically impossible. They could only take some risks and fly over. However, this round trip would take at least half a year. Chapter 8:18. Of course, if one was as strong as Emperor Wu, one would not be here. One could just tear space apart and go wherever one wanted. Such a demonic garden became a natural barrier between the primal chaos domain and the chaotic demonic sea, preventing either side from invading the other. The merfolk of the chaotic demonic sea were famous for their ferocity. The primal chaos domain gathered all the evil cultivators and crazy people of the entire Tianwu domain. If not for this demonic garden, the 2 factions would definitely fight. Elder Peng brought Xiao Chen to the sect's transportation formation to the central province. Then, he spent a large sum of money to use the transportation formation that connected the central province to the entire Kunlun realm to a city at the borders of the primal chaos domain. These 2 transportation formations covered tens of millions of kilometers. Without these transportation formations, one would not be able to reach this place without flying for 3 to 5 years. Before Xiao Chen could appreciate the scenery of the primal chaos domain, he mounted one of Peng Dan's spirit beasts and continued on his way, continuously flying through the clouds. After flying like this for 7 days, they left the primal chaos domain and stopped at a desolate mountain 50 kilometers away from the yellow-soiled demonic garden. After looking around for a while, Elder Peng took out a jade scroll. The small forest in front of him disappeared, and a cave appeared in front of him. Xiaochen knew how to lay illusion formations as well. When he saw this scene, he did not find it strange. However, the illusion formation before him was somewhat exquisite, attracting a few more glances from Xiaochen. "Let's go in." Elder Peng took the lead and entered. Xiaochen maintained his cautiousness as he followed close behind. The cave twisted and turned, breaking several traps along the way. Finally, they arrived at a stone room. Xiaochen could not help but think, the person in this cave is really cautious. There are illusion formations, tunnels, and traps. Now that they're in the stone room, there is no way to enter. After Elder Peng stated his identity, the stone door slowly opened. An old cultivator with a face full of wrinkles and a gloomy gaze walked out. This old cultivator nodded slightly to Elder Peng. Then he sized up Xiaochen and frowned. "Why did you bring a junior? Hey, you are not an ordinary half-sage. Your heavenly sage laws are thicker than those of several inferior grade martial sages." Elder Peng raised his hand and said, "Let's talk inside." After entering the stone room, Elder Peng introduced them to each other. "Xiaochen, this is the current sect master of the Heavenly Evil Sect, Senior Lu Weiping. He is also the one who initiated this operation." Xiaochen didn't feel comfortable with this person's aura, so he just nodded lightly and didn't say anything. This person was a medial grade martial sage. Furthermore, he was not an ordinary medial grade martial sage. He should have been a medial grade martial sage for a long time already, lingering in the middle or late stages. His cultivation was much higher than Elder Peng's. However, judging from how the two of them sat side by side on the main seats in the room, their relationship should be very close. Elder Peng then pointed at Xiaochen and said, "This is a newly promoted genius disciple of the Haotian sect. He has a martial technique that is very effective in suppressing all kinds of special flames." However, Lu Weiping did not seem to care. He said, "After I returned, I searched the sect a few times and found a personal letter that the evil king left behind. There were some records of that kind of flame." Xiaochen felt excited. A personal letter from the evil king? I wonder if there are any records of the 7 thrones? When Elder Peng heard this, he rejoiced. He asked, "How is it? Are there any results?" Lu Weiping's expression did not change. He said calmly, "The evil king once searched the residence of an immortal cultivator and obtained a flame called a nascent flame. According to the description, it is the strange flame that we encountered. According to the records, I made some preparations this time. However, I'm not completely confident. Let's see what my old friends are planning." After that, all they had to do was wait. No one spoke in the stone room. Xiaochen had nothing to do, so he closed his eyes and cultivated. "Old fogey Lu, you are becoming more and more timid. To think that you have so many tricks up your sleeves at a meeting place." Xiaochen opened his eyes. The person who entered was a tall and stout man. When he spoke, his voice was frighteningly loud. Accompanying him was a middle-aged woman who looked rather charming. These two were peak late-stage inferior grade martial sages. After Elder Peng introduced them, Xiaochen learned that they were like him, inner sect elders of one of the 9 ranks of the great families in the Tianwu domain. The heavenly evil gates Lu Weiping sighed and said, "We have no choice but to be cautious. The next demonic god blood sacrifice will arrive in less than 10 years. Some of the big factions of the primal chaos domain are discussing how to take advantage of the situation. Everyone is starting to merge with the smaller factions. It is not possible for me to stay out of this." Elder Peng changed the topic and asked, "My 2 old friends, are you prepared this time?" The stout man rolled his eyes and smiled. "I prepared a high-quality sage grade fire-warding cloak. I think it should not be a problem for me to protect myself." The pretty middle-aged woman said, "I found a pool pearl. It should not be a problem for me to protect myself." When Lu Weiping heard this, he revealed a cold smile on his face. They were all obedient people. They only talked about protecting themselves, not extinguishing the fire. Another person arrived later. This person also brought a secret treasure. However, he could only protect himself. Peng Dan and Lu Weiping exchanged glances. It seemed like they had expected this. Xiao Chun observed for a while and discovered that Lu Weiping and Elder Peng seemed to be in cahoots with each other. The three people who arrived later formed a temporary alliance. Clearly, this was to prevent these two from kicking the donkey down the drain. Strange, why is the Heavenly Mystery Gate's brother Lu not here yet? After waiting for a long time, it seemed like the most important person they were waiting for had not arrived yet. Even Lu Weiping started to feel impatient. If your cave were not full of twists and turns, would this old man be so late? Laughter rang out. Before Lu Weiping could get up to open the stone door that could not be opened from the outside. Footsteps resounded, and a spirited old man with white hair and a youthful complexion appeared before Xiao Chun. Lu Weiping, your mechanisms are still as lousy as before. This old man could not help but wander around your cave. When I found some traps, I could not help but break them, delaying me for some time. Sorry for that. Xiao Chun glanced at this old man with the family name Lu. This person is interesting. However, the traps along the way were no ordinary trash. This old man should be a strange person. In Xiao Chun's memory, the Heavenly Mystery Gate did not seem to be one of the 9 ranks of the great families. However, the entire sect was good at formations and all sorts of mechanisms. They were rather unique and famous. This was not Lu Weiping's first time dealing with this person, so he did not say anything. Elder Ping stood up at an appropriate time and introduced Xiao Chun to the group. Then, they immediately prepared to depart. However, the reactions of the others were similar to Lu Weiping's. Xiao Chun did not look like a simple member of the younger generation. However, they did not believe that a junior could solve this problem, that even these martial sages could not. Hurricanes lingered above the yellow-soiled demonic garden all year round. Some of the horrifying hurricanes could even tear Grandmaster-level martial sages to shreds. Naturally, Xiao Chun's group would not take any risks. They all walked on the yellow soil obediently. The group's vision was dim yellow. At the end, they could see a dense forest. Once they reached that place, they would truly enter the yellow soil demonic garden. The vegetation inside looked exactly the same as the outside world. However, they were all mutated plants that could eat humans. Many legends pointed to the tree of immortality, which only existed in myths. The existence of the tree of immortality caused this land to mutate. Xiao Chun did not have much in common with these old fellows, all of whom were at least 200 years old. Given their statuses, these people were not willing to take the initiative to talk to him. Xiao Chun walked calmly at the back of the group. He listened to every word the old men revealed. According to what this group of people said, the evil king did not die a natural death. Instead, he went to a forbidden land of the sea beyond the chaotic demonic sea, the Mirage Immortal Palace, and died mysteriously. After the evil king died, the king's sect continued to decline. Now, it no longer showed any signs of improvement. It even faced the calamity of sect destruction. The chaotic demonic sea was already very large. After the chaotic demonic sea, most of the natives of the Kunlun realm only knew it as the Penglai Sea. Not many people truly understood it. However, the Mirage Immortal Palace was very famous in the primal chaos domain. Some people called it the Mirage Ghost Palace. Rumor had it that it was a high-level immortal sect remnant. Even the blue-robed emperor did not dare guarantee that he could return alive. The group moved quickly. Soon, they arrived at the sinister forest. There was a small path in the middle of the forest, opened by cultivators who often went there to adventure. Lu Weiping's old face did not change at all. He said, "With our cultivations, there is nothing to pay attention to at the periphery of this demonic garden. Let's not slow down." After saying that, Lu Weiping took the lead and walked in. The others did not hesitate to follow. Xiao Chun remained silent. He did not say anything as he walked at the back. However, he extended out his spiritual sense, not withdrawing it. Puchi. Suddenly, a hole appeared in the ground in front, and a venomous snake as thick as an arm shot out. It opened its jaws and bit at Lu Weiping at lightning speed. This snake's body was ridiculously long. Its lower body was still buried deep in the ground, looking like it was bottomless. Lu Weiping smiled coldly and stretched out his hand. The snake head near him exploded. The snake was startled and retreated at lightning speed, trying to burrow back into the ground. Lu Weiping pulled back, and a formless suction came from his hand. Then, he grabbed the strange snake body that was trying to retreat. Xiao Chun stretched out his hand and pulled. The ground split open with a loud rumble. Rocks burst out and spread to a huge tree about a kilometer in front. Then, the entire tree soared into the air. Its roots left the ground and kicked up a large amount of rocks. The entire ground caved in. Xiao Chen's pupils constricted. He could clearly see that the venomous snake as thick as an arm earlier was just one of the thousands of roots of this tree. It was not a venomous snake at all. However, Lu Weiping had not expected to uproot it after probing it. The remaining roots opened their mouths and shot at Lu Weiping. Chapter 819. The scene looked very frightening. However, that Lu Weiping did not move at all. He infused his heavenly sage laws into his hand, and a clump of black light immediately came out from the root he held. The clump of black light instantly entered the tree. With a loud bang, this terrifying, strange plant exploded into its shavings, filling the air. The expressions of the others changed slightly. Although they did not care about this fiendish snake tree, it would be very difficult for them to destroy it as casually as Lu Weiping did. They did not know if Lu Weiping did this to show off his might, or if he was really in a rush. The middle-aged man and the others all showed uncertain expressions. Who knew what they were thinking? Along the way, Lu Weiping swept through everything in his path. The entire group did not slow down at all. The group moved very quickly. In the blink of an eye, they had traveled more than 10 kilometers into the demonic garden. 3 days later, Lu Weiping led the group to a towering tree. He looked at the old man from the heavenly mystery gate and said, "Brother Lu, I'll leave this restriction to you. Could it be that the evil king's final resting place is in this towering tree?" Xiao Chun entered deep thought. When Xiao Chun looked carefully, he discovered that there were 3 layers of barriers around the towering tree. The old man with the family name Lu from the heavenly mystery gate glanced at them. He did not show much of a grave expression. He had already broken this restriction once. Breaking it again would be even easier. The old man took out a stack of small flags. Then, his figure flashed as he surrounded the towering tree and stabbed them into it. Xiao Chun watched without blinking. He was rather interested in the formations of the Kunlun realm. After setting up everything, the old man with the family name Lu hovered in the air. He formed hand seals and sent out beams of light into his formation flags. After a while, a large formation flickered with light and descended from the sky. Then, it clashed intensely with the 3 layers of restrictions around the towering tree. Under the pressure of the old man's formation, the formless barrier started to crack bit by bit. Then, it shattered like a mirror. The people waiting anxiously heaved a sigh of relief. Elder Peng smiled and said, "Brother Lu's understanding of formations is probably the best in the Kunlun realm after Emperor Wu." The old man with the family name Lu put away the formation flags like they were treasures. He did not show much pride on his face. "This really has nothing to do with me. If I had not coincidentally obtained a set of universe flags, I really would not have been able to break the restriction that the evil king left behind." Lu Weiping ignored their compliments and walked straight in. With a wave of his hand, a token shot into one of the grooves on the middle-aged man's body. With a cracking sound, the towering tree strangely split into 2, revealing a path. Whoosh! With a flash, Lu Weiping flew in first. Elder Peng and the old man with the family name Lu hurriedly followed. Lu Weiping seemed to have obtained something this time, an incredible secret treasure. He was very confident of clearing the stage of a nascent flame. He forcefully destroyed all the traps along the way, leaving the rest far behind. As Elder Peng and the others chased after Lu Weiping, they saw the broken pieces of the traps on the ground. They exchanged glances. "It looks like this Lu Weiping only wants to use Brother Lu to break the restriction outside. He is very confident of clearing the nascent flame and is planning to monopolize it. The stout man smiled coldly when he saw that Lu Weiping was no longer in sight. The pretty middle-aged woman also showed some displeasure on her face. She said, "Previously, we met with strong demonic beasts along the way. We all contributed. Otherwise, how could this trip be so easy?" The Heavenly Mystery Gates cultivator with a family name, Lu, glanced at Elder Peng and said, "Elder Peng, you have the best relationship with this Lu Weiping. You could be considered half a promoter. Can you explain what is going on?" After breaking the restriction, Lu Weiping moved quickly, no longer showing any intention of traveling with the others. Clearly, some of the agreements were no longer effective. The other three looked at Elder Peng, wanting to demand an explanation from him. If there was no reasonable explanation, they might attack immediately. The atmosphere in the underground tunnel immediately turned somewhat tense. The five-peak martial sages released their auras indistinctly. Elder Peng's expression turned sullen. He said he found a letter personally written by the evil king. He probably can clear the nascent flame. Furthermore, he is certain that we will not be able to clear it. That's why he is so confident. However, we should wait until we reach the nascent flame first. What can a few of you change with your attitude towards me? You had best not do anything stupid. This old man has not made a move for many years. My hands are indeed itching. When Xiao Chun, who was not far away, saw this scene, he revealed a playful smile. Before reaching the nascent flame, the group showed signs of splitting up. This was beyond his expectations. This was good as well. Since they were not united, it would be easier for Xiao Chun to execute some of his plans. No matter what, Xiao Chun had to figure out the secret of the seven thrones. He had to figure out whether the seven thrones could merge or not. After merging, would there be the state of cycle? Chu Chaoyun's understanding of the state of primal chaos was ahead of Xiao Chen's. Xiao Chun had to figure out the state of cycle. This was an excellent opportunity. Lu Weiping had already disappeared. The situation had clearly turned somewhat strange. The group increased their speed and flew quickly through the underground tunnel. Xiao Chun did not execute Thunder Dragon steps. He only used the Blue Dragon Cloud soaring art and easily followed behind the group. The distance between them never widened. After about 15 minutes, Elder Peng stopped in front of a cave. He had a sullen expression, and his eyes looked very frightening. A clump of white flame burned fiercely at the entrance of the cave, blocking the entire entrance. When the group looked around, they did not see Lu Weiping. The expressions of the others were extremely unsightly. This time, Lu Weiping really intended to shake them off. The skinny old man who had remained silent all this time revealed an ambiguous smile and said, "This Lu Weiping really thinks that we won't be able to pass the trial of the nascent flame. Old friends, you should all be prepared this time, right?" The eyes of the Heavenly Mystery Gates old man flickered. Even with his proud character, he became cautious when facing this mysterious nascent flame. Elder Peng's expression turned uncertain. He glanced at Xiao Chun, who was behind him, and then muttered to himself, "I'll do it. My flame parting robe is a high-quality sage-grade secret treasure. After all, I don't believe that a clump of flame can block me." The stout man took out a black cloak and wore it. When he activated it, the cloak glowed with a cold light, forming a white light barrier. The others looked over. Since someone was willing to test it out, naturally, they were happy to watch. Whoosh! The stout man flashed into the cave entrance. When he was just one step away from the large clump of nascent flame, he stopped. It looked like while he spoke casually, he was not very confident in his heart. The stout man did not make everyone wait for long. In the end, he took a step forward and walked in. The Heavenly Mystery Gates old man narrowed his eyes and looked carefully, not daring to relax for even a moment. Elder Peng and the others did the same, feeling extremely nervous. Xiao Chun crossed his arms and stared at the nascent flame. However, his state of mind was as calm as still water, without any fluctuations. The surroundings turned quiet. Just as everyone was extremely nervous, not even daring to breathe loudly, a miserable cry came from the nascent flame. A fiery light flashed, and the stout man, who had just stepped in, retreated in an extremely sorry state. His black cloak was nowhere to be seen. Most of the stout man's clothes were burned, and a large patch of his hair was charred yellow. Many burn marks were visible on his skin. This phone is incompetent. This nascent flame will have to depend on my old friends. The burly man revealed an expression of lingering fear in his eyes. His earlier confidence was gone, and he walked over while cursing and cursing. The others remained silent. After a long time, the pretty middle-aged woman walked out. She took out a pearl and placed it in her mouth. Then, she silently walked into the clump of flame. There was no need to wait for long. After a while, the pretty middle-aged woman came out. She took out a pearl and placed it in her mouth. Then, she silently walked into the clump of flame. However, with the example of the stout man, this woman immediately retreated when she saw that something was wrong. Aside from her pale complexion, she did not suffer any injuries. Following that, Elder Peng and the skinny old man took out their fire-resistant secret treasures and tested them. In the end, they failed and even nearly drew the flames to themselves. The heavenly mystery gates old man smiled faintly and said, "It looks like it does not matter whether this old man tries or not. Even if I manage to get through by luck, I will not be a match for that old fogey Lou. I am really not resigned to this. The place where the evil king died has at least 4 or 5 king-grade secret treasures. Getting one is already worth it. After we get out, if this old man does not seek trouble with the heavenly evil gate, my surname is no longer Foam." The stout man cursed and appeared extremely upset. The group gathered together and discussed how to get Lu Weiping to spit out something after they got out. Xiao Chen's eyes lit up like torches as he took in everyone's expressions. He discovered that everyone, including Elder Peng, was extremely furious. Only the heavenly mystery gates old man with the family name Lu showed a furious expression. However, his eyes clearly did not care much. Logically speaking, the heavenly mystery gates old man should have suffered the most. Without him breaking the restriction outside, even Lu Weiping would not have been able to enter. However, Xiao Chun did not care what this person thought. His figure flashed, and he arrived before the hole. Then, he observed the clump of nascent flame at a close distance. When Elder Peng saw this scene, his eyes lit up. The group's successive failures nearly made him forget about their secret weapon, Xiao Chun. He smiled and said, "Everyone, perhaps you're not that pessimistic. The martial technique that this disciple of my sect practices is very effective against all sorts of flames." The stout man snorted coldly and said unconcernedly, "Just him? He is just a junior who is not even a martial sage. Old man Peng, I think you are getting muddle-headed with age. Right now, we can only wait here for Lu Weiping to come out. If he leaves from another exit, we will go to the heavenly evil gate together to put pressure on him. I don't believe that he will not spit out what we deserve." The others approved of this plan as well. With the 5 of them working together, they would definitely be able to suppress Lu Weiping. They would not be afraid of him falling out with them. Chapter 820. Along the way, they had no impression of Xiao Chun at all. He was like an invisible person. How could they have any confidence in him? Pu Ci. Just as the group discussed what to do when they went to the heavenly evil gate, Xiao Chun took a step back and instantly executed the Taiji Yin-Yang flame diagram. The Taiji Yin-Yang flame diagram flew out from top to bottom. Under Xiao Chen's command, it slowly pressed down. The nascent flame, which was tightly blocking the entrance, slowly pressed down. After a while, the entire Taiji Yin-Yang flame diagram stuck to the ground. The blocked entrance in front became empty, appearing before the group's eyes. The stout man was somewhat dumbfounded. Xiao Chun actually managed to suppress this nascent flame. What the peak inferior grade martial sages could not do, Xiao Chun did. When Xiao Chun entered, joy flashed in the eyes of the group, and they quickly flew in. "Little friend Xiao Chun, it is all thanks to you this time. Don't worry. If we really find a king-grade secret treasure, this old man will guarantee that we will give you one." Elder Peng rejoiced. He had not expected this move of his to be useful at the crucial moment, suppressing the nascent flame. So he immediately guaranteed to Xiao Chun. Two lights flashed, and the purple thunder true fire and the lunar true flame entered Xiao Chen's eyes. The nascent flame, which was suppressed to the ground, soared up again. The stout man smiled and said, "Little friend, it looks like you are quite capable. This Feng is sorry for offending you earlier. If we find a king-grade secret treasure this time, we will definitely let little friend choose one first." The others also guaranteed to let Xiao Chun choose first. Xiao Chun smiled faintly and casually said a few words, not saying anything more. The nascent flame blocked the way once more. If they could not find another exit, they would have to rely on him. These people were all smart people. They understood Xiao Chen's current value. Although his cultivation was not high, no one dared to underestimate him anymore. The Heavenly Secrets gates, old man Lu said, "Let's go quickly. If Lu Weiping has already left through another entrance, we will be in big trouble." The few of them came to their senses and hurriedly used their movement techniques to move forward. Along the way, they could see all kinds of broken mechanical beasts and traces of battle. There was no need to worry about how to find their way. So. When a peak inferior grade martial sage executed his movement technique at full power, he kicked up a strong wind. Even though Xiao Chun executed Thunder Dragon steps, he could still keep up easily. Xiao Chen's movement technique was no weaker than these martial sages. In fact, when he used his full power, he even had a slight advantage. This made him feel more confident. Finally, in an extremely spacious stone chamber, they finally saw Lu Weiping's figure. The stone room was hundreds of meters wide and thousands of meters long. At the end of the room was a praying mat, where a skeleton sat cross-legged, wearing a black robe. Lu Weiping had already removed the spatial ring from the skeleton's hand and was now carefully examining the treasures inside. There were some unknown pieces of metal, secret treasures of various shapes, some jade bottles, and a black bee skin letter. Xiao Chun stared at the black bee skin letter. This was the letter that the evil king carried with him before he died. Perhaps the secret of the 7 thrones was in it. There are also many other treasures. However, they did not match the identity of an ancient sovereign martial emperor. It looked like the rumors were right. There was indeed something strange about the evil king's death. Lu Weiping, unexpectedly, you even dare to deceive this old man, wanting to monopolize the treasures that the evil king left behind. Elder Peng shouted at Lu Weiping furiously as he led a group of people over. The others spoke up as well. At this moment, they had the advantage in numbers. Furthermore, Elder Peng was someone who could fight against a medial-grade martial sage. They did not fear Lu Weiping at all. This was especially so for the stout man. Murderous intent filled his eyes as he stared at Lu Weiping with malicious intent. However, Lu Weiping did not show any panic on his face. When he saw the confident group of people, his old face twitched. He said, "I am the sect master of the Heavenly Evil Gate, a descendant of the evil king. If his treasures are not mine, could it be yours?" Elder Peng's face sank. This Lu Weiping was completely prepared to fall out with them. However, there were so many people on his side. Where did he get his confidence from? The stout man said angrily, "Why are you speaking so much nonsense with him? Since he is not going to cooperate, then we will just go up and destroy him." When Elder Peng saw that the stout man was about to charge forward, he quickly stepped forward to stop him. "Don't act rashly. We can still negotiate. Brother Lu, speak." Before Elder Peng could finish speaking, he suddenly cried out miserably and vomited a large mouthful of blood. A dagger had pierced through his back and pierced his heart, revealing a small part of his chest. The exposed tip of the dagger had clearly been smeared with a horrifying poison. Now that it pierced his heart and contaminated him with poison, Elder Peng would definitely die. Elder Peng turned his head to see who attacked him from behind. However, the person who sneak attacked him directly punched his head. Lu Weiping, who was in front, smiled coldly and attacked at the same time. Using his cultivation as a medial-grade martial sage, he instantly severely injured the stout man beside Elder Peng. The situation in the field suddenly changed. "Brother Lu, what's wrong with you?" The sudden reversal of the situation made the remaining middle-aged, beautiful woman and the skinny old man turn pale with fright and their minds go blank. The person who sneak attacked them from behind was none other than the old man with the family name Lu from the Heavenly Mystery Gate. In an instant, he killed the defenseless Elder Peng. The matters of the world were always thought-provoking. Originally, Elder Peng and Lu Weiping were on the same side. The two of them were very powerful, so the others were forced to work together. However, Lu Weiping broke the agreement, wanting to take the evil king's inheritance for himself. This caused Elder Peng to betray them halfway. Originally, everyone thought that the situation was clear. Everyone would work together to deal with Lu Weiping, who broke the agreement, and then split the secret treasures evenly. Everyone could not wrap their heads around all this. However, from a spectator's point of view, they could figure out the mysteries behind it after some analysis. This was the second time Lu Weiping was searching for treasures. He no longer needed so many people. He only needed the old man with the family name Lu. Splitting the treasures with 2 people would be better than splitting it with 7 or 8 people. Naturally, the old man with the family name Lu agreed. Furthermore, Lu Weiping did not intend to let the others off, either. If the old man did not kill them, they would come to the Heavenly Evil Gate to settle scores with him. That would be problematic. Hence, the scene before them. The skinny old man and the middle-aged woman reacted immediately. Without saying anything, they turned and ran. Now that it was 2 against 2, even without the old man with the family name Lu Weiping could kill them alone. How could they not run? Lu Weiping smiled coldly and said, "I'll go and deal with these 2. I'll leave that brat to you." The old man with the family name Lu nodded to indicate that there was no problem. Then he looked at Xiao Chan casually and said, "Do you want me to do it? Or do you want to commit suicide? That way, it might be less painful." After saying that, the old man with the family name Lu kicked casually and tossed Elder Peng's corpse toward Xiao Chen. The corpse flopped on the ground twice before landing at Xiao Chen's feet. As Xiao Chen looked at the headless corpse, he could not help but sigh. Elder Peng was a peak inferior grade half-sage. When he consumed some medicinal pills that Xiao Chen refined, even a medial grade martial sage could not do anything to him. However, the hearts of people were hard to predict. Even in death, Elder Peng probably did not know who sneak attacked him from behind. How could a teammate with similar interests betray him at the last moment? Furthermore, he attacked so quickly, accurately, and ruthlessly. Xiao Chen raised his eyebrows and looked at the old man with the family name Lu, who seemed certain that he would be killed. He said, "Commit suicide? Sorry, but you killed an inner sect elder of my Haotian sect. This Xiao will not die until I take your life as a sacrifice." The old man with the family name Lu smiled coldly and said, "Kill me? Are you out of your mind? I'm only 1 step away from becoming a medial grade martial sage. You are just a half-sage, and yet you dare to speak to me like that?" Xiao Chen's lips curled up as he mocked. "Will you be stuck at this step for 50 years, 70 years, or 100 years? You are seeking death." Xiao Chen's casual attitude finally angered the old man with the family name Lu. He leaped up, and his heavenly sage laws flowed out of his body, forming fiery red ribbons of light. From a distance, they looked like long whips made of intense flames dancing around. When the old man arrived, a horrifying heat surged over. Waves of flames covered the sky. Xiao Chen wanted to test the difference between him and a peak inferior grade martial sage. He did not dodge or dodge. Instead, he infused his heavenly sage laws into his palm. Xiao Chen clenched his fist tightly, and a dazzling electric light burst out. Bang! When the fist and palm met, there was an intense, ear-splitting sound. Xiao Chen took 10 steps back, moving 100 meters with each step. Then, his feet sank, and he landed firmly on the ground. Xiao Chen frowned. In terms of explosive power, the difference between him and a peak inferior grade martial sage was obvious. However, it was not as if he could not put up a fight. By relying on his rank 2 sage body, he could clash head-on with the other party without any fear. However, there was still Lu Weiping, a bona fide medial grade martial sage, behind him. He had to end this battle quickly. Otherwise, Xiao Chen would not be able to carry out his plan. When the old man with the family name Lu saw that Xiao Chun only moved back 500 meters after receiving his palm strike, his complexion remained normal. He did not even suffer any light injuries. He could not help but feel apprehensive. Not daring to be careless, the old man with the family name Lu brought out his full strength. The heavenly sage laws behind him burned fiercely, forming an overwhelming flame. The temperature in the stone room soared. Several objects could not withstand the high temperature and burst into flames. The air was terrifyingly dry. Xiao Chun could not help but circulate his quintessence to resist the intense heat. In terms of pure cultivation, older generation cultivators were indeed horrifying. Xiao Chun could not use his cultivation to deal with such a situation. Berserk weapon blazing palm. The old man with the family name Lu shouted, and his clothes fluttered. His face flushed red, and his aura pressed down like a mountain. Unexpectedly, he used all his treasures on this move. The boundless flames behind the old man turned into beams of fiery light and entered his right arm. Before Xiao Chen's shocked gaze, the other party's red arm suddenly exploded. The arm turned into a huge flaming bracelet attached to the old man's shoulder and smashed toward Xiao Chun. This huge, flaming hand was not symmetrical to the old man with the family name Lu's body. It looked like the arm of an ancient giant had been forcefully attached to a human's body. The old man with the family name Lu swung this huge hand. When the old man raised his hand, he silently melted a deep, arm-shaped pit in the ceiling of the stone room. Chapter 821. In the next moment, the old man landed before Xiao Chun. The huge flaming palm spread open, giving Xiao Chun no chance to dodge. Bang! The entire stone chamber shook violently. Pieces of rocks were peeled off and fell to the ground with a loud rumble. Waves of fire spread out in all directions. The old man with the family name Lu's arm recovered to its original state. He heaved a heavy sigh and looked at Xiao Chun, who was buried in the ground. He wiped the sweat off his forehead and revealed a merciless, mocking smile. So what if you were a genius? Before advancing to martial sage, you are not worth mentioning before me. The old man with the family name Lu strode forward and headed for where Xiao Chun was buried. The old man coveted the martial technique that Xiao Chun used to suppress the nascent flame. If he could find it on Xiao Chun, he would have profited greatly. Xiao Chun's body was already buried in the ground. The old man was very confident in his palm strike. Even a cultivator with a rank 1 sage body would have their internal organs ruptured and die instantly. A cultivator without a rank 1 sage body would immediately turn into a pile of meat paste, not even leaving a corpse behind. Only a rank 2 sage body could resist this move head-on. However, a rank 2 sage body was something that only Grandmaster level martial sages could achieve. Some people did not even place much importance on the physical body. Only the blue-robed emperor could achieve a rank 2 sage body. No matter how heaven-defying a half-sage like Xiao Chun was, he would not be able to achieve a rank 2 sage body. Indeed, the old man used his mental energy to check. Blood leaked out of the corner of Xiao Chun's mouth, and he was no longer breathing. In your next life, be more low-profile. The old man with the family name Lu stretched out his hand and sucked. A strong wind blew, trying to suck the universe ring in Xiao Chun's hand over. Huchi! Just at this moment, Xiao Chun's palm suddenly moved. He flicked his finger, and a white astral core flickering with electric light shot out. The suction force welcomed the astral core and landed in the old man's palm. Xiao Chun, who was lying on the ground, opened his eyes, and the corners of his mouth curled up into a smile. His sea of consciousness surged, and his divine sense instantly ignited the lightning engraved on the star nucleus. All of this happened in an instant. The old man didn't even have time to react before the white star core exploded. The energy of the astral core surged. The old man with the family name Lu, who had just executed a powerful move, was blasted into a mangled mess of flesh and blood. Xiao Chun leaped up and easily escaped. A longbow appeared in his hand. He knocked an arrow and drew the bowstring. All the strength in his body was released in an instant. The Soul Slayer bow exploded with an ear-piercing sonic boom. A cold light flew out like a meteor, chasing after the old man with the family name Lu. The arrow pierced through his heart, carrying with it a huge force. With a pung sound, it pinned him to the wall. Slowly landing on the ground, Xiao Chun took out an internal injury healing pill and swallowed it. He looked at the pill bottle and then at Elder Peng's headless corpse on ground. Xiao Chun sighed softly and wrapped up Elder Peng's corpse. Then, he cleaned it up and placed it in his spatial ring. After all, they were from the same sect. He had to give the other party a proper burial. Xiao Chun pushed off the ground and arrived before the evil king's corpse. Then, he swept away the things that Lu Weiping had poured out earlier and placed them in his spatial ring. Then, he flicked his finger, and a black puppet snake appeared. When the old man with the family name Lu, who was hanging on the wall and breathing weakly, saw this scene, he could not help but lose all hope. Originally, the old man had hoped that Lu Weiping would come back to take revenge for him. Unexpectedly, Xiao Chun had such a rare puppet snake secret treasure. With 3 steps, Xiao Chun arrived below the old man with the family name Lu and removed his spatial ring. Then, he said calmly, "It is better to offend an old man than to bully a youth. Remember to be more low-key in your next life." After that, Xiao Chun entered the puppet snake and controlled it to burrow into the ground, vanishing from the stone room. "Brother Lu, are you done with that brat?" 10 minutes later, Lu Weiping returned with a relaxed expression after dealing with the 2 peak inferior grade martial sages. However, when Xiao Chun saw the old man with the family name Lu pinned to the wall by an arrow, he suddenly stopped speaking, and his expression changed drastically. Holding on to some hope, the old man looked at the empty space in front of the evil king's corpse. It was empty, and his face turned ashen. 50 kilometers away from the yellow-soiled demonic garden, a flat ground suddenly exploded. Dirt flew everywhere, and the black puppet snake leaped out. Xiao Chun activated the mechanism and leaped out. Then, he looked around and found a forest. First, he used his spiritual sense to scan the area. Then, he put away the puppet snake. His figure flashed, and he entered the forest. Inside the forest, Xiao Chun dug a hole and placed Elder Peng's corpse in. After burying it, he made a simple tombstone and carved Elder Peng's name on it. Looking at the simple grave, Xiao Chun thought for a long time. If one day he failed to prove his Tao and fell on the path to the great Tao, would anyone be willing to bury him? The path of cultivation was filled with thorns and dangers. One wrong step could result in death. Sometimes, even if one did nothing wrong, one might still be powerless. Xiao Chun bowed gently to the grave. He felt somewhat depressed, not wanting to remain in this place any longer. Xiao Chun hovered in the air and determined a general direction. Then, he started moving quickly. Naturally, an explosive martial technique like Thunder Dragon Steps could not be used for long distances. However, with the Blue Dragon Cloud soaring art, Xiao Chun would not be slow. Half a day later, a small city appeared in the distance. Xiao Chun increased his speed and arrived at the inn in the city before it turned dark. After resting for a night, Xiao Chun washed up and started to tidy up his gains from this trip. There was a total of 4 king-grade secret treasures. Xiao Chun checked them and discovered that 3 of them were severely damaged. Even if he used them to repair them, the gains would not make up for the losses. Such a result was rather disappointing. The deaths of Elder Peng and the others were not worth it. This was even more evidence that the evil king had died a sudden death. Several of the treasures did not even have time to preserve them before they died. If Xiao Chun had left some restrictions on them, they could have survived for 50,000 years. Of the 4 king-grade secret treasures, only one remained intact. It was an ancient lamp. The flame in the wick had been extinguished long ago. The formation lines, Tao marks, and materials were all well preserved, showing no signs of damage or decay. The evil king was a sovereign martial emperor from the ancient era. He had participated in the legendary War of the Emperors in the savage, desolate land 50,000 years ago. For this ancient lamp to survive until now, it was definitely extraordinary. The other secret treasures had already deteriorated from the inside out with the corrosion of time. Only this lamp was undamaged. The layers of complicated formation lines and Tao marks were still there. As long as Xiao Chun left an imprint on it with his spiritual sense, he would be able to use it immediately. However, given Xiao Chen's current cultivation, even if he wanted to refine a king-grade secret treasure, he would not be able to use it. Xiao Chun first set this lamp aside and continued checking the other things. Most of the things that could survive until now without any damage were some kind of unknown heavy metal. When he held it in his hand, it was very heavy. This should be some kind of material. Xiao Chen called out Ao Jiao and asked, "What are these pieces of metal?" Ao Jiao weighed them in her hand and revealed a smile. She said, "They seem to be black pattern gold. They are essential for forging divine weapons or emperor-grade secret treasures." Xiao Chen rejoiced in his heart. He had heard of the great name of black pattern gold long ago. During the ancient era, sovereign martial emperors all had a divine weapon or emperor-grade secret treasure. At that time, the production of black pattern gold was frighteningly high. However, now black pattern gold was already extinct in the Kunlun realm. Only in the depths of the starry heavens, if one was lucky enough to collect some and sell them at an auction, they would fetch a sky-high price. There are more than 10 pieces of black pattern gold here. Do you think it is enough to upgrade the lunar shadow saber? Xiao Chen asked. Ao Jiao thought for a while before replying. It is definitely enough. However, there are no signs of the other materials yet. For example, high-ranked astral cores, 10,000-year-old frost iron cores, blood ice stones, and so on. Xiao Chen carefully put away the black pattern gold and said, "There's no need to be afraid. Although these are precious, they are not extinct. As long as we have the black pattern gold, we can slowly search for the rest." Subdivine weapons were not easy to forge. Normally, they only existed in sovereign noble clans. Upgrading a divine weapon to a subdivine weapon was even more difficult. However, the lunar shadow saber was different. Ao Jiao had nourished it for a long time. As long as the materials were gathered, it would be able to upgrade the lunar shadow saber immediately. Putting aside this matter, Xiao Chun had another thing that interested him. It was the set of universe flags from the heavenly mystery gates, Elder Lu. With a flip of his hand, 72 small red flags formed a ring in the room, spinning as they floated. Each of the flags contained mysterious talisman scripts and vast spiritual energy. Xiao Chun infused his spiritual sense into his eyes, searching for something among the 72 universe flags. After a while, he fixed his gaze on a particularly bright-colored flag. This should be the main flag. Xiao Chun stretched out his hand and grasped it. Then, he used his spiritual sense to forcefully break the restrictions and enter the flag. Soon, he found the spiritual sense imprint left by the old man with the family name Lu. Xiao Chun discovered it, but he was not in a rush to destroy it. Instead, Xiao Chun directly swallowed it up. Instantly, the various mysteries of this set of universe flags entered Xiao Chen's mind. This set of universe flags had a formation attached to it. When executed, it could trap people or protect one's residence or residence. Aside from this, there was another function. One could use it as a formation flag. When executing other formations, one would be able to achieve twice the result with half the effort. Formation flags were something that the cultivators of the Immortal epoch refined. The method of making them no longer existed. Now, when cultivators laid formations, they mostly used spirit stones or astral cores or other energy crystals to embed in the nodes. With formation flags, not only could it save a lot of resources, but it could also increase the might of the formation. It was both convenient and powerful. Xiao Chun grasped the flag in his hand and infused his spiritual sense into it. Then he waved his hand, and the other 71 flags turned into beams of light. They quickly merged with the flag in his hand. Not bad. In the future, with this set of flags, be it trapping people or protecting my life, it will be very useful. If I learn how to lay formations, it will be even more useful. Xiao Chen carefully put away the universe banners and revealed a faint smile on his face. After he finished checking everything, he looked at the black letter. Chapter 822. The main purpose of this trip was to figure out the origins of the 7 thrones and see if merging them into one could form the state of cycle. After that, he could upgrade it into the will of cycle to fight against Chu Chaoyin. Xiao Chen opened the letter and read it carefully. His expression changed continuously. The letter recorded some of the evil king's past experiences and his comprehension of the martial Tao. However, most of it was a kind of despair for the great Tao. As a powerful expert from the ancient era, he stood at the very peak. However, the higher one stood, the more reverence one would feel for this world. The more one understood, the more one would feel insignificant. The evil king used a very certain tone to express that there were definitely stronger existences above sovereign martial emperor. The peak of the martial Tao was not limited to this. However, the evil king could not enter. Some of the people who advanced to that realm also left mysteriously. The letter did record the 7 thrones very clearly. It was a cultivation technique that the evil king obtained from the Mirage Immortal Palace called the cycle art. One had to comprehend 7 wills: massacre, ruin, destruction, grief, pain, despair, and death. Finally, one had to comprehend the true essence of each and merge them to cultivate the cycle art. The strength of the cycle art far surpassed that of any heaven-ranked cultivation technique. Every time one succeeded in cultivating a will, it would transform into a throne. The evil king left behind 7 thrones, which meant that he had successfully comprehended all 7 wills. However, he had not merged them, which meant that he had not cultivated the cycle art. According to the letter, the merging of the 7 thrones required a tool. Furthermore, this tool was still in the Mirage Immortal Palace. For the sake of finding this tool and becoming an existence that surpassed sovereign martial emperor, the evil king activated a forbidden land in the Mirage Immortal Palace that even he could not clear. The letter ended there. However, Xiao Chun could roughly guess the contents of the letter. It was nothing more than the evil king failing to clear the forbidden land and escaping with his life. Then, he suffered an incurable injury and died. Xiao Chen closed the black letter and could not relax his frown. He did not see the glory of a sovereign martial emperor in the words at all. They were all filled with reverence for the great Tao, the pursuit of martial arts, the yearning for the unknown, and an indescribable loneliness. This gave Xiao Chun a deeper understanding of sovereign martial emperors. 10,000 years ago, the Qing emperor had been the strongest sovereign martial emperor since the ancient era. He had been unrivaled in the entire Kunlun realm. His heart was probably even lonelier than the evil king's. Would his reverence for the Great Path be as heavy as the evil king's? The Great Path was difficult. Was it really a peak? This was the first time Xiao Chun had such a question. Putting away those temporarily useless feelings, Xiao Chun summarized the information that was useful to him in the letter. The 7 thrones could indeed merge. It was not much different from what Xiao Chun had expected. After merging, the 7 states would form the state of cycle. This was a supreme concept that surpassed high-level concepts and pointed directly at the great Tao. However, in order to fuse them, one would need a tool. For now, Chen Feng did not know what that tool was. The only clue he had was in the Mirage Immortal Palace. It had been many years since the Mirage Immortal Palace had appeared. Even if it did, given his current level of strength, it would be hard for him to protect himself in the periphery. All the problems returned to the starting point, advancing to martial sage. Without advancing to martial sage, everything else was just empty talk. Xiao Chen hoped that when he returned to the Haotian realm, there would be news from Ming Qiong. Otherwise, it would be hard for him to advance to martial sage within a year. Xiao Chun had only been in the Kunlun realm for a mere 2 years, and his cultivation had already soared from martial monarch to peak half-sage. However, he was still slightly weaker than the geniuses of the other races. Not to mention the others, just the matters of the 3 holy masters meant that Xiao Chun had spent more than 3 years in the half-sage realm. After tidying up everything, Xiao Chun did not intend to remain in the primal chaos domain. He intended to directly teleport to the central province and return to the Tianwu domain first. Just as Xiao Chen opened the door, urgent footsteps came from the corridor. An ordinary-looking man dressed as a waiter walked over. "Might I ask if this is the Hao Ian Sect's young master, Xiao Chun?" the waiter asked after he approached. Xiao Chun sensed that the other party was indeed an ordinary person, someone who had not even condensed a martial spirit. He replied calmly, "That is me. Did someone ask you to bring a message?" The waiter did not answer directly. The smile on his face did not change as he said, "Indeed, someone asked this lowly one to bring a message. However, would young Master Xiao be able to prove your identity first? This is my Hao Ian Sect identity token. It should be enough." Xiao Chun handed over his identity token. He felt somewhat suspicious. He wondered which major faction he could find so quickly in the primal chaos domain. The waiter checked the identity token and said, "Haha, it is indeed young Master Xiao. This is a letter that Miss Ying Qiong asked our organization to bring to you. Please take a look." Xiao Chun felt excited. He received the letter and read it. After a while, he revealed a smile. The flaming sun fruit, the three holy masters' grass, and the heaven dragon flower finally made some headway. When Xiao Chun raised his head to take a look, the waiter had already taken his leave. Xiao Chun burned the letter and rushed down the stairs. "Xiao Chun, why are you smiling so happily? What is written in the letter?" Ao Jiao asked out of curiosity from the immortal spirit ring. Without stopping, Xiao Chun smiled faintly and said, "We are not returning to the Haotian sect. We are going directly to the profound domain to look for Ying Qiong. She has already found the three main ingredients for the breaking sage pill." Ao Jiao giggled and said, "That is indeed something to be happy about. Congratulations." Xiao Chen smiled and did not say anything. Just as he was about to go down to the first floor, his expression changed slightly. Suddenly, he pulled back and hid himself in the corridor below. "What's wrong?" "Nothing." Xiao Chun smiled gently and said calmly, "I met an old friend. Do you still remember Zhong Zhenghao? He is on the first floor of the Flourishing Heaven Pavilion in Hanluo City, the evil person who took away the broken mulberry sword." Ao Jiao's expression changed. She asked, "What's wrong? Are you afraid that he will seek trouble for you?" Xiao Chen's lips curled up slightly. "Afraid that he will seek trouble for me? Right now, I am the one seeking trouble for him. I have long wanted to touch him in Hanluo City. It is time to take back the remaining piece of the mulberry sword." On the first floor of the inn, Zhong Zhenghao, who exuded a baleful aura, wore sackcloth robes and ate expressionlessly. Based on the expression on his face, he did not seem to be having a good time recently. Compared to Hanluo City, there were many experts in the primal chaos domain. The cruelty of the environment far surpassed that of Hanluo City. The evil cultivators of the mortal race, ghost race, deity race, biting race, and corpse race all gathered here. With Zhong Zhenghao's cultivation as a peak inferior grade martial sage, it would be impossible for him to obtain a status like that of Hanluo City. After leaving the inn, Zhong Zhenghao headed for the outskirts of the city. Along the way, he frowned a few times. However, he did not say anything. He continued walking until he reached a rather desolate area outside the city. "Sir, after following me for so long, isn't it time to reveal your true self?" Zhong Zhenghao released a baleful aura, and a murderous intent filled his eyes. Strands of heavenly sage laws came out of his body and started absorbing the spiritual energy of the world. Zhong Zhenghao said expressionlessly as his aura reached its peak in an instant. Whoosh! A figure flashed in the air. Xiao Chun floated down and landed on the ground. He smiled gently and said, "Sir, you have good eyes. Do you still remember me?" "You?" Doubt flashed in Zhong Zhenghao's eyes. He quickly recalled, and the doubt in his eyes vanished. Greed flashed in his eyes as he said, "So, it is you. Are you here to deliver the myriad heaven divine fist to me? I have really troubled you. I ran to the primal chaos domain, yet you still followed me. Sorry, I am here to take your life." Xiao Chun took out the universe flags and formed hand seals. He quickly activated the formations of the 72 universe flags. The flags fluttered and quickly stabbed into the ground. In the blink of an eye, the area within a 5-kilometer radius was isolated by an invisible barrier, ensuring that Zhong Jinghao could not escape. Zhong Jinghao's expression did not change at all. He coldly eyed Xiao Qin's actions, and the greed in his eyes intensified. He said, "Universe flags. These things are extinct. Brat, you really have a lot of treasures in your hands. Hee, I can use you as a sumptuous snack. I have not gained anything in the primal chaos domain recently." Zhong Jinghao's figure moved, and an overwhelming, baleful aura spread out. He punched, and the black heavenly sage laws behind him formed a demonic figure, making him look incredibly sinister. The accumulations of the older generation martial sages were extremely terrifying. They had more than 100 years of cultivation. Even in terms of cultivation techniques and states, they could not compare to the geniuses of the younger generation. A profound cultivation base and seasoned combat experience could make up for these shortcomings. If Zhong Jinghao ran into another genius half-sage, he would not be able to escape defeat as a peak inferior grade martial sage. Unfortunately, he ran into Xiao Qin. Xiao Qin did not take a step back when facing this overwhelming punch. He executed myriad heaven-divine fists, deities descending, and punched. Bang! The demonic figure behind Zhong Jinghao crumbled, and he retreated 100 meters. His chi and blood surged, and his expression turned strange. In his fight with the old man with the family name Liu, Xiao Qin already had a clear understanding of the strength of a peak inferior grade martial sage. He could definitely defeat his opponent with deities descending. Not giving his opponent too much time to be shocked, Xiao Qin drew the lunar shadow saber. Instantly, thunder roared, and the immortal will of thunder surged out. After knocking back Zhong Jinghao with one punch and suppressing his aura, Xiao Qin unleashed the might of his will and completely suppressed his opponent's aura, not giving him a chance to counterattack. Xiao Qin used the lightning tribulation saber technique, attacking move after move. Rumble! Thunder roared endlessly, and the might of Xiao Qin's will pressed down. After 100 moves, Zhong Jinghao started to look inferior to Xiao Qin's chain of attacks. Xiao Qin did not fear clashing head-on with Zhong Jinghao's moves. Zhong Jinghao had his trump cards, but so did Xiao Qin. The 3 moves of the dragon subduing / completely suppressed his opponent. Zhong Jinghao's killing moves instantly crumbled. This was especially so for the final move, Double Dragons playing with pearls. Xiao Qin could not dodge it, and it struck Zhong Jinghao's body. As for the lightning tribulation saber technique, a saber technique with a might no weaker than a heaven-rank martial technique, it was executed casually by Xiao Qin. He was very familiar with it. It was like he was executing an ordinary saber technique without pause. After another 100 moves, Zhong Jinghao felt that his internal injuries could no longer endure, and he wanted to retreat. However, Xiao Qin relied on his rank 2 sage body and looked much better than Zhong Jinghao. Chapter 823. Zhong Jinghao executed a secret technique and soared into the sky. He wanted to leave the battlefield, to stop fighting with Xiao Qin. Bang! When Zhong Jinghao reached 1,000 meters away, he ran into a formless barrier and was knocked back down. Horror filled his face. When Xiao Qin saw this scene, he smiled coldly and sheathed his saber. The electricity in the sky gathered together and formed a purple lightning talisman. Xiao Qin pointed, and a purple light flew out. The immortal inscriptions on the talisman spun. Zhong Jinghao, who had fallen to the ground, had no time to react. The talisman easily broke his weak protective quintessence. With a PUCI sound, a bloody hole appeared in Zhong Jinghao's chest. He roared in dissatisfaction and walked over to Xiao Qin. In the end, he only took 10 steps before he collapsed. The purple talisman returned to Xiao Qin's sea of consciousness. Then he waved his hand, and the universe flags turned into beams of light and landed in his palm. This was the first time he used the universe flags, and the results were pretty good. Xiao Qin smiled faintly and took out Zhong Jinghao's universe ring. Xiao Qin found the broken half of the mulberry sword. Xiao Chun could not help but heave a sigh of relief. He had been afraid that Zhong Jinghao would smelt this broken sword. If that was the case, there would be no point in finding it. Xiao Chun took back the broken half of the mulberry sword for Ao Jiao. Nothing else. Ao Jiao revealed herself and played with the broken half of the mulberry sword that Xiao Chun handed to her. She revealed a nostalgic expression in her eyes. Compared to before, that sorrowful expression was nowhere to be seen. The matters of the Thunder King were already in the depths of her mind, becoming memories. She could reminisce about them, but not feel sad. One had to look forward. Hee. There are many good materials in this broken half of the mulberry sword. Are you really going to give it to me and not smelt it back? The broken half of the sword flew around in Ao Jiao's hand. It was like she had an extra arm. She was very familiar with it. Xiao Chun curled his lips and pretended to be angry. He said, "Strange, am I such a selfish person in your eyes?" Ao Jiao giggled and said, "Hee, stupid master, you still have some self-awareness, huh? I suddenly feel that I have to change my mind. If I reforge it, I might be able to obtain 1 or 2 more materials to upgrade the Lunar Shadow Saber. Dream on. How could I give you something that you gave me back? Besides, it was originally mine." The two of them bickered happily as they quickly left this place, heading toward the city of the profound domains in Clan. Naturally, Xiao Chun could not rely on his own strength to fly to the profound domain. Given the vast borders of the Kunlun realm, even if it was not a boundless sea, he would not be able to fly to the profound domain. At the very least, one would need to be at the level of the blue-robed emperor to be able to rely on their own strength to travel unhindered in all directions. This had to do with the spatial structure of the Kunlun realm. Once the speed reached a critical point, it could not be increased any further. He had to tear through the void. Otherwise, the faster he moved, the greater the resistance and the greater the consumption. No one in the martial sage realm could withstand it. After circling around for a while, Xiao Chun finally returned to the Tianwu Domain's central province. Due to the impending demonic god blood sacrifice, the peak factions of the primal chaos domain started to reshuffle. They were all prepared to take advantage of the chaos to make a fortune. For the sake of the impending chaos, they all expanded their territories and frantically replenished their strength. Several cities with transportation formations fell under strict control. Xiao Chun had to spend some effort to find a way to get a spot. He spent a large sum of money to obtain a transportation formation. There were some stories that happened, and he saw the true dangers of the primal chaos domain. This was a chaotic land where the 5 major races and some ancient races gathered. As an inferior grade martial sage, Xiao Chun could not be too unbridled. Otherwise, his life would be in danger. This was indeed a paradise for rogue cultivators. There were no scruples, and there were no dignified guardians. Whoever had the bigger fist was the truth. The strong grew stronger, and the weak grew weaker. The survival of the fittest was a cruel daily scene. After seeing the horrifying accumulations of some of the major factions, Xiao Chun felt somewhat worried. If the demonic god blood sacrifice came, the demons would choose to attack the Tianwu domain. There would be the army of the demons in front and the evil cultivators taking advantage of the situation behind. To the Tianwu domain, this would be a huge disaster. However, there was still some time to prepare. According to the information that Xiao Chun obtained, the demonic god blood sacrifice this time would take place at least 10 years later. However, 10 years was not a long time. Based on Xiao Chun's experience, he had already been in this world for 6 years. Based on the age of this world, he was already 23 years old. To Xiao Chun, the events of 6 years ago were still fresh in his mind. As a sovereign noble clan, the Ying clan had been in the profound domain for tens of thousands of years. Their faction could be said to be spread throughout the profound domain. They were not much stronger than Bushin Palace. However, they were not as strong in terms of peak experts. After Xiao Chun arrived in the profound domain, he flew all the way to the Ying clan's headquarters, Qin City. This was a city even more majestic than Haoyan City. Based on this, the name of the Sky Dome Realm's Great Qi Nation should have something to do with this Qin City. Although this city was the Ing clan's headquarters, it was open to the outside world. The entire city was very prosperous. In terms of commercial development alone, it could leave Hao Ian's city in the dust. After putting on a black cloak and entering the city, Xiao Chun headed straight for the largest inn in the city, the Heavenly Water Restaurant. When Xiao Chun arrived at the inn, he informed the waiter and was immediately led to a private room for distinguished guests. "This guest, please wait for a while. The young miss will be here soon," the waiter said respectfully to Xiao Chun in the private room. After waiting for 3 or 4 months, Xiao Chun was not afraid of waiting any longer. He waved his hand and dismissed the waiter. Since he had nothing to do, he took out the painting of the Qing Emperor drawing the saber and looked at it. Xiao Chun was already used to the feeling of being killed. Now, when he faced this painting of the Qing Emperor drawing the saber, he could remain as still as a mountain, not panicking at all. He could only deal with the person in the painting in that mysterious space. After about 10 minutes, Xiao Chun heard footsteps. He put away the painting of the Qing Emperor drawing the saber and waited quietly. "Young Master Xiao, it has only been 3 or 4 months, yet you have become so cautious. This is not like you." Creak. The door opened gently, and Ing Qiong, dressed in phoenix robes, walked in with a smile on his face. Xiao Chun removed his hood and said calmly, "The other 3 sovereign noble clans view me as a thorn in their side. Now that I have come to the profound domain, I have to be more cautious." Ing Qiong sat across from Xiao Chun. His alluring figure exuded a boundless charm. He revealed a meaningful smile and said, "The descendant of the Qing Emperor, the first rank of the human proud son of heaven ranking. It would be hard for you not to attract attention." Xiao Chun did not want to linger on this topic, so he went straight to the point. "You breached the contract 2 months later than the agreed time." A mischievous expression appeared on Ing Qiong's pretty face. She smiled craftily and said, "This is not considered breaching the contract. If not for the fact that you wanted to collect 2 sets of ingredients, I would have prepared them for you long ago. According to the unwritten rules, if one breached the contract, they would have to pay a certain price to make it up to the other party." Clearly, Ing Qiong did not want to suffer such a loss. Xiao Chun did not bother arguing with her. He took out the other half of the great rock spreading wings painting and said, "Take it out, then. Refining the breaking sage pill will take some time. I do not have much time to waste." Ing Qiong did not beat around the bush. With a flip of her hand, 3 brocade boxes appeared in front of her, floating quietly. Then she flicked her finger, and the brocade boxes opened. Instantly, a dense medicinal fragrance wafted out. Xiao Chun extended his spiritual sense and easily determined the authenticity of the ingredients. The flaming sun fruit, the 3 holy masters' grass, and the heaven dragon flower were all real. "Good, you did not lie to me. You are indeed capable. You can bring me the 3 main ingredients now," Xiao Chun said indifferently. However, Ing Qiong smiled faintly and did not move. She said, "Bring me the other half of the core painting piece first. After that, I will give you the 3 main ingredients." Xiao Chun raised his eyebrows and said, "What's wrong? You don't trust me?" "Huh, why would you trust me?" There was indeed no sense of trust between the 2 of them. This girl had already tricked Xiao Chun once in the Stargrave. Naturally, he would not let it happen again. Although the other half of the core painting piece could not allow Xiao Chun to become a martial sage, it was still very useful. Ing Qiong was worried that Xiao Chun would go back on their agreement after obtaining the other half of the core painting piece. For the sake of secrecy, she did not bring many people with her. Given Xiao Chen's methods, even if he wanted to kill her, he would not be able to keep her here. Xiao Chun entered deep thought. After thinking for a while, he said, "Very well. Since that is the case, how about we push the things in our hands to each other at a constant speed?" Ing Qiong did not have any misgivings about this. She said, "That is exactly what I was thinking." Xiao Chun gently raised his palm and pushed. The core painting piece, giving off a faint light, slowly moved towards the other party. Ing Qiong did the same, slowly pushing the 3 brocade boxes towards the other party. The 2 brocade boxes were less than half a meter away from each other. However, the speed of the two items was like that of a snail. After a few minutes, they barely crossed the halfway mark. The treasures of both sides overlapped in the air. Both of them heaved a sigh of relief. As long as they crossed the middle, they would be able to take what they wanted. Bang! Just as the two of them focused on each other, a figure suddenly knocked over the door to the booth. The expressions of Xiao Chun and Ying Qiong changed at the same time. They quickly put away their things. The person who knocked over the door was an old woman with a high cultivation. When Xiao Chun checked, he felt that she was at least a medial-grade martial sage. Ying Qiong's expression appeared even more flustered than Xiao Chen's. He helped the old woman up with a sullen expression and asked, "What's going on? Young miss, leave quickly. The people outside are all dead. I cannot last much longer, either," the old woman said as she coughed and vomited a mouthful of blood. Clearly, she suffered severe internal injuries. Whoosh! A figure flashed outside the door, and a yellow-robed old man appeared. He smiled coldly and said, "You want to leave? Do you think that is possible?" Ying Qiong's expression changed. He exclaimed, "Third uncle, why is it you?" The person who came was actually Ying Qiong's third uncle, someone who held a high position in the clan and was extremely strong. The old woman struggled to get up and pushed Ying Qiong back. She said, "Leave quickly. Don't bother about me." Ying Qiong struggled in his heart for a while before he roughly understood what was going on. He turned around and leaped towards the booth's window. Chapter 824. Along the way, Xiao Chun suddenly thought of Xiao Chun. He glanced at his seat, but it was empty. After the old woman entered, Xiao Chun immediately left silently. Seeing this scene, Ying Qiong could not help but curse in her heart. To think that this lady was still thinking about him. Unexpectedly, this fellow is even faster than a rabbit. Whoosh! Ying Qiong leaped out of the window. This place happened to be behind the Heavenly Water Restaurant. It was quiet and secluded. Normally, few people passed by. The moment he landed, Ying Qiong saw Xiao Chun standing in front with a frown. She quickly chased after Xiao Chun and ruthlessly smacked him. "Aren't you very fast? Why aren't you running anymore?" Ying Qiong said in a fit of pique. Xiao Chun smiled bitterly and did not reply. He only looked around. Ying Qiong followed Xiao Chun's gaze and saw a masked man standing on the roofs of a few nearby buildings. They were all dressed in black with a venomous purple scorpion embroidered on their chests. Only their eyes were exposed, and they held weapons in their hands. Their gazes were cold, like they were corpses. Ying Qiong took in a deep breath of cold air. She stared at the poisonous purple scorpion and muttered, "This is my Ying clan's saint-level, death-sworn warrior. What a great Ying fan! You really dared to attack." Xiao Chen's expression was extremely unsightly as well. He quickly thought of a countermeasure. There was a total of 5 black-clad men. Their cultivations were all medial-grade martial sages. If there were only one of them, Xiao Chun would not have any problems escaping. If he worked together with Ying Qiong, they might even be able to defeat one of them. With 5 medial-grade martial sages working together, furthermore, they were death-sworn paid for by the Ying clan. There was no need to think too much. They would not be able to put up a fight. If each of them struck Xiao Chun with a killing move, no matter how strong his physical body was, he would turn into a meat patty. However, he did not feel much fear at all. He had the will clone of the Haotian Great Monarch, and he could summon it out automatically in times of danger. With that, he would be able to crush the 5 of them easily. However, that will clone could only be used once. The Haotian Emperor had expended a lot of energy to create it, so he couldn't give him a second will clone. It was his final life-saving trump card, and he would never use it unless he had no other choice. The corner of Xiao Chen's mouth twitched. He smiled gently and said, "Miss Ying, I've really been implicated by you this time. Let's leave it to fate. I won't pursue this matter further." Obviously, this group of people had come to kill Ying Qiong. This was an internal dispute within the Ying family. This kind of thing was not rare. In order to fight for the position of successor, the various factions of the family would sometimes go to extremes. If this happened to a sovereign noble clan with a long inheritance, the benefits involved would be even greater. Such a method made even more sense. If they split up, the pressure on the two of them would be much smaller, and their chances of escaping would be much higher. After speaking, electric light flashed under Xiao Chen's feet, and he leaped forward. However, a fragrant wind blew from behind. Before Xiao Chen could dodge, he felt something press down on his back. A pair of arms bent gently and wrapped around Xiao Chen's neck. It was Ying Qiong hugging Xiao Chen from behind. Before Xiao Chen could say anything, he had just used the explosive power of Thunder Dragon Steps to break through the encirclement of the five. 5 strong attacks carried a berserk wind as they surged towards him. Every one of these attacks was extraordinary. If they landed on his body, he would not feel good. Xiao Chen maintained absolute calm and executed Thunder Dragon Steps at full power. Electricity flickered, and he moved 3 kilometers in 1 step. The 5 black-clad men chased after him unhurriedly. Their figures leaped up and down as they executed all sorts of attacks, coordinating with each other as they attacked Xiao Chen continuously. While fleeing at full speed, Xiao Chen still had to change his position to dodge the attacks from behind. Furthermore, he was carrying a woman on his back. His Thunder Dragon Steps descended another kilometer. Xiao Chen could cross only 2 kilometers in 1 step. The 5 people behind him chased relentlessly, sending out lethal martial techniques. All sorts of resplendent, multicolored lights appeared in the air, causing space to fluctuate and form ripples that spread out. The buildings in the city were all turned to ashes by the shock waves. The mastermind seemed to have planned this long ago. Along the way, Xiao Chen did not see a single person. He guessed that this large area had been sealed off. To be able to do this, it had to be the true upper echelon of the Ying clan. The other party was determined to kill Ying Qiong. The people behind chased relentlessly. When Xiao Chen dodged, he was no longer as calm as before. He brushed past them several times. Missing, speaking of which, how long are you going to hug me? If you still don't come down, I will really throw you off. Xiao Chen felt helpless when facing the beauty behind him. He had never seen such a carefree girl before. The other party's voluptuous figure pressed tightly against him. Any man would feel disturbed. Xiao Chen endured it very bitterly. When Ying Qiong heard this, she could not help but hug Xiao Chen even tighter. She said anxiously, "If not for fear of exposing your movements, this lady would not have brought only 2 guards out. You have to take responsibility for anything you say." Naturally, Xiao Chen did not believe the other party's words. After dodging another attack, Xiao Chen said with a cold expression, "Come down. If you still don't come down, I will not be polite to you anymore." Ying Qiong smiled faintly and moved her body gently behind Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen could clearly feel 2 voluptuous breasts rubbing against his back. In a moment of carelessness, Xiao Chen nearly lost control of his quintessence, causing him to fall from the sky. "Hee, young Master Xiao, let's see how you're going to be rude to me." Ying Qiong tilted her head slightly and blew a breath of hot air on Xiao Chen's face. She said, "It does not matter whether you believe me or not. In any case, today's matter is because of you. If not for protecting your secret, I would not have brought only 2 guards. No matter what you say, you have to take responsibility. Don't leave me behind." Xiao Chen took a deep breath and slowly descended from the sky. He floated steadily and landed on the ground. He said calmly, "Come down, then. I'm afraid of you. I will ensure your safety today." Ying Qiong shook her head like a rattle drum. She said, "Not coming down, not coming down. The moment I come down, you will leave me behind. How can I be a match for 5 medial-grade martial sages?" Xiao Chen smiled helplessly. He grabbed Ying Qiong's wrists with both hands and slowly pried them open. He said softly, "Come down. Since I promised, I will definitely ensure your safety." For some reason, Xiao Chen said these words. Perhaps it was because of his sincerity, or perhaps it was because of Xiao Chen's character. His words sounded very convincing. Xiao Chen gently pried Ying Qiong's hands open. Then he put them down and said, "Stand behind me. Don't do anything." After that, Xiao Chen turned around and looked coldly at the 5 people flying over. He patted his chest with his right hand, and a void projection painting appeared in his palm. Ying Qiong was slightly stunned, somewhat horrified. Why did Xiao Qin stop and face 5 medial-grade martial sages head-on? Was this any different from suicide? Don't move. Just stand there. Just as Ing Qiong was about to step forward and stop Xiao Qin, Xiao Qin's indifferent voice rang out. Hu Qi. A surging, icy sword qi tore through the air and flew out. Everywhere it passed, ice and snow fell. The air seemed to freeze, so cold that it made one shiver. Before the sword qi arrived, a cold wind arrived. As the wind howled, a chill spread from Xiao Qin's feet to his chest, making his limbs cold and immobilizing him. The heavenly sage laws in Xiao Qin's body surged like a purple river of electricity, flowing through his entire body and eliminating this chill. Xiao Qin flipped his hand, and the void projection painting unfurled. A red light flashed, and the scarlet lotus flame in his palm leaped out of the painting and clashed with that icy sword qi. The scarlet blood frost flame was rumored to be one of the evilest flames in the world. Although this was not a replica, it contained its true essence. However, its might was significantly reduced. Pusii. When the scarlet lotus flame crashed into the surging icy sword qi, it immediately stuck to it. The scarlet lotus flame turned into a scarlet membrane that covered the entire surface of the icy sword qi. The frost flame quickly permeated into the icy sword qi and assimilated it in the blink of an eye, turning it into scarlet specks floating in the air. Then, they quickly reformed into a scarlet lotus flower. Ignoring the shocked black-clad man, Xiao Qin stretched out his hand and pointed. The scarlet blood frost flame turned into a flame spirit that tangled with the other party. According to Xiao Qin's estimation, given the scarlet blood frost flame's current level, the flame spirit that it formed should be as strong as a half-sage. However, it would not have any weaknesses. Without the suppression of the pure yang flame, even a medial-grade martial sage would have to put in a lot of effort to kill this flame spirit. This flame spirit could help Xiao Qin by some time. Xiao Qin did not have time to think. 2 beams of light shot out from his eyes and formed a Taiji yin-yang flame diagram above his head. They chased each other, materializing the 4 divisions and the 8 trigrams. Bang! 2 strong attacks struck this Taiji yin-yang flame diagram from above and gave off a dazzling golden light. A loud sound rang out. Xiao Qin felt like the mental energy in his sea of consciousness was like a dam opening, leaking out wildly. However, Xiao Qin managed to block these 2 attacks. Furthermore, they were reflected back at the 2 in even more horrifying speed. The killing moves that the 2 executed were so fast. Furthermore, they did not expect their martial techniques to be reflected back. Hence, they were struck by their own martial techniques and knocked back more than 4,000 meters. Xiao Qin did not stop moving. His expression did not change at all. The Taiji yin-yang flame diagram spun again, and an arm stretched out from it. In an instant, it expanded rapidly. The emperor's might of a peerless sovereign came out from his arm as he lightly clapped his hand. Then, the palm gently smashed down and knocked back one of the black-clad men, causing him to vomit blood. After this strike, the arm quickly retracted back into the diagram. Xiao Qin's mental energy was also completely drained. The light from the Taiji yin-yang flame diagram above his head vanished and returned to his eyes. One left. In a few breaths, Xiao Qin knocked back 4 people. This scene stunned Ing Qiong, who was watching from behind. However, the last person of the other party had already succeeded in pressing forward. Given the other party's strength, they would not be able to kill Xiao Qin quickly in close combat. Delaying Xiao Qin would not be a problem. However, once the others recovered, only death awaited them. Thinking of this, Ing Qiong could not help but pale slightly. A wooden umbrella appeared in his hand as he prepared to fly forward. Battle Sage's Strength Character Formula, 36-fold Combat Prowess. Chapter 825. When Xiao Qin saw the final person approaching him, his expression remained as calm as still water. He did not panic at all as he put away the void projection painting and summoned out the Lunar Shadow Saber. Xiao Qin used the Strength Character Formula to drive Soaring Dragon. A vast aura spread out boundlessly from his body. A dragon roar resounded, and a strong wind blew. The surging aura was like a snowy mountain collapsing, inspiring fear. The black-clad masked man actually paused for a moment in midair. Hidden dragon in the depths, soaring dragon in the sky. It is fine if it does not move, but when it does, it soars into the clouds and looks down on the mountains and rivers. Xiao Chun gently took a step forward, and a boundless energy burst forth. In that instant, a 1,000-meter-long crack appeared in the ground, splitting the flat ground in half. When Xiao Chun drew his saber, it gave off a resplendent and dazzling light. He soared up like a blue dragon. With 36-fold combat prowess, the roar of this blue dragon could shatter a martial sage's courage. Xiao Chen's momentum was even more unblockable. A horrifying wound appeared on the masked man's chest, and he vomited a large mouthful of blood. His fate was unknown as he flew back 10 kilometers. Although all this took a long time to describe, Xiao Chun had indeed blocked the attacks of the 5 medial grade martial sages in an instant. He only needed to raise his hand a few times to block these insufferably arrogant 5 people. Xiao Chun forcefully suppressed the aftereffects of using the strength character formula and took out the puppet snake. Then, he picked up the somewhat stunned Ying Xiong and quickly entered the puppet snake. After blocking for a while, there should be enough time for the puppet snake to move. Xiao Chun had beaten back 5 medial grade martial sages with a wave of his hand as a half-sage. If he told others about this, no one would believe him. However, it had happened right now. The 5 masked black-clad men recovered slightly. Then, they gathered together with furious expressions. Between them was a hole as wide as a water bucket. It was pitch black and bottomless. They exchanged glances and saw helplessness in each other's eyes. With their abilities, they could split mountains and split rocks. They could even overturn rivers and seas in a small area. However, drilling into the ground with the agility of animals was a little too much for them. Of course, cultivators who practiced special cultivation techniques did not exist. There would always be some extraordinary people in the world. However, it was clear that these 5 were not such people. Puppet Snake, this guy actually possesses such an almost extinct artifact. This is going to be difficult. With great difficulty, I managed to drag some of the elders of the clan over, but that girl still managed to escape. The 5 of them were a little flustered. If they allowed Ying Xiong to leave this time, once the matter in the depths of the starry sky was settled, all the elders would return. What awaited them then would not be a good outcome. Whoosh! A gust of wind was heard. The expert who had killed the old lady who served Ying Xiong came to the entrance of the cave. After listening to what had happened, his face slowly turned gloomy. The old man said angrily, "What a descendant of the Qing Emperor! How dare you ruin my plan like this? Third Elder, what should we do? Now that we cannot kill the second young miss, what should we do?" The yellow-robed old man said calmly, "I will think of a way to suppress this matter. Since I made a move, naturally, I am prepared for failure. You all can return first." When the 5 black-robed men saw that the old man was so calm, not flustered at all, they could not help but heave a sigh of relief. After respectfully receiving their orders, they turned around and prepared to leave. Pusii, an extremely fast saber light flashed, and 5 heads flew into the air, their eyes filled with disbelief. Unexpectedly, the yellow-robed old man's plan was to silence them by killing them. Even more unexpectedly, this yellow-robed old man was a Grandmaster-level martial sage. If they had known, they would have kept an eye out and not casually shown their backs to this person. A figure descended. It was the handsome man who had stood beside Ying Xiong during the Sage War. He frowned slightly and looked at the cave under his feet. He said, "Second sister, you are really lucky. You paid such a huge price to lay this trap. Unexpectedly, an unexpected person broke it so easily." The yellow-robed old man sighed softly and said, "First young master, I will deal with the aftermath. I will not implicate you in this matter." The young man entered deep thought. After a while, he stretched out his right hand, and a small bird appeared in his palm. He raised his hand and let go, and the small bird flew into the cave. That white-robed bladesman should not have any combat prowess for the time being. If my wind-chasing bird can find them, we should still have a chance. The yellow-robed old man's eyes lit up. He said, "In that case, I will go and make preparations now." The young man raised his hand and said, "There's no need. Just focus on dealing with the aftermath. I will deal with the rest. If we make a mistake, we will lose our luck. If we do our best, we will be going against the heavens. I will just send some people over." Outside Chin City, in a forest 1,500 kilometers away, the calm soil suddenly exploded and a black snake leaped out. The mechanism under the snake's belly opened, and two figures jumped out. Tiny scarlet lines covered Xiao Chen's entire body, appearing and disappearing as if his skin would burst. Xiao Chen did his best to suppress the aftereffects of using the strength character formula and put the puppet snake into the universe ring. Then, he put on his hood again and stared at the cave with a grave expression. Before Ing Xiong's somewhat doubtful gaze, Xiao Chen suddenly made a move after a while. A sharp saber chi shot out from his fingertip. Kassier, the wind-chasing bird, which was less than half the size of a palm, was chopped in half by this purple saber chi the moment it emerged. "This is the wind-chasing bird that my big brother, Ing Fan, raised. It really is him," Ing Xiong said with a somewhat gloomy expression. If he had only guessed earlier, now that he saw this unique wind-chasing bird, there was no need for any evidence to prove anything. After waiting for a while and seeing that no wind-chasing bird came out, Xiao Chen relaxed. The skin on his face, which was hidden under his hood, slowly split open and blood flowed out. "Missing, you're already safe. Can we continue with our agreement?" Pain spread through Xiao Chen like needles pricking him. He felt the after-effects that he had been suppressing were like a flood or a ferocious beast, ready to erupt at any moment. Xiao Chen's voice trembled slightly as he spoke. Ing Xiong felt this was strange. However, he did not hesitate this time and handed the 3 brocade boxes to Xiao Chen. When he saw Xiao Chen's right hand stretch out from his sleeve, he was stunned. "Your hand." Xiao Chen's originally smooth skin split open and blood leaked out. It looked incredibly horrifying. Ing Xiong stretched out his hand and blew out a strong wind. Xiao Chen's hood immediately fell off, and Ing Xiong let out a startled cry. He could not help covering his mouth with his hands, and goosebumps broke out all over his body. Now, Xiao Chen looked very frightening. His face was covered in spiderweb-like lines of blood. That was the blood that leaked out when his skin split open. Xiao Chen put away the brocade boxes and covered himself with his hood again. Then he tossed the other half of the core painting piece to Ing Xiong. He smiled bitterly and said, "Sorry, I scared you. It's just a superficial wound. I will be fine after some rest." Compared to when he executed the strength character formula in the past, the situation this time was much better. He still remembered the first time he executed the strength character formula in the Sky Dome realm. He had instantly overdrawn all his combat prowess. He could not even stand up. Being able to last for so long this time already far surpassed Xiao Chen's expectations. At this rate, he should be able to execute the strength character formula once after he attained a rank 4 body. A light flashed on his forehead, and a scarlet throne appeared on a scarlet cloud. Xiao Chen took a deep breath and endured the intense pain. Then, he leaped up and finally sat on the throne. A scarlet light flickered, and the massacre throne carried Xiao Chen into the distance. Hu Qi, a pretty figure holding a wooden umbrella, descended from the sky and stood on the speeding scarlet cloud. Xiao Chen glanced at her. For some reason, Ing Xiong followed him again. However, even moving his lips now caused intense pain. Xiao Chen could not be bothered to say anything, so he let her follow him. In any case, if the other party wanted to take advantage of this to take his life, the Haotian Emperor's will clone would turn the other party into dust the moment Xiao Chen truly felt threatened. As the rainbow light flew, the scarlet cloud carried the throne. After flying for 50 kilometers, Xiao Chen landed it at the foot of a stone mountain. The place was filled with all sorts of strange rocks and very few people. It was a very suitable place for recuperating and hiding from pursuers. After landing, Xiao Chun put away the Scarlet Throne. Then, he spent some time using the universe banners to lay a restriction around this place. Without saying a word, Xiao Chun leaped onto a stone pillar and sat down cross-legged. Then, he started to deal with the repercussions of using the strength character formula without any worries. As Ying Qiong looked at Xiao Chun on the stone pillar, her expression became uncertain, complicated. She did not know how to describe her current emotions. She found Xiao Chun increasingly unfathomable. She could not understand or guess what kind of person he was. He was clearly selfish to the point of being cold. However, in order to make a promise, Xiao Chun risked such severe injuries to ensure her safety. It was just like when Xiao Chun clashed head-on with Yin Shisan in the Star Grave Palace for the sake of the spirit fox race woman. At this moment, Ying Qiong did not know that the most wondrous emotion in the world of mortals was like a soft hook, slowly entering the defenses of her heart. She could no longer pull it out. 3 days. For 3 days, Xiao Chun endured immense pain. By relying on his strong physical body, he mostly recovered from the repercussions of using the strength character formula. The scary red mark on Xiao Chun's face also disappeared. His skin became as smooth as before. A bright light flickered in his eyes, and he gained a deeper understanding of the strength character formula. Xiao Chun stood up and spat out a mouthful of turbid qi. Then, he put away his cloak and stretched his limbs. The slight noise immediately startled Ying Qiong, who was seated on the stone pillar closest to him. She sat there with her eyes closed, feeling somewhat restless. When Ying Qiong opened his eyes and saw that Xiao Chun had recovered his original appearance, he heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. Joy flashed in his eyes. "Young Master Xiao, many thanks for saving me this time," Ying Qiong said with a smile. Xiao Chun narrowed his eyes and sized up this girl. Then, he revealed a contemplative expression. After a while, he said something that nearly made Ying Qiong vomit blood. "I really cannot tell that Miss Ying is not only intelligent and strong, but she is also very broad-minded. This Xiao is truly ashamed of my inferiority." Chapter 826. These words matched Xiao Chun's gaze. As long as Ying Qiong was not a fool, she would know what Xiao Chun was hinting at. 2 patches of red immediately appeared on Ying Qiong's jade-like, smooth cheeks, looking incredibly bashful. Ying Qiong felt both angry and anxious. Her usual calm and indifferent attitude was nowhere to be found. What a great Xiao Chun! This mist did not merge the 2 painting pieces back into one and guarded them for 3 days. The moment you open your mouth, you are like a venomous snake. However, Ying Qiong could not think of any words to rebut. She could not admit that she was guarding the painting piece to Xiao Chun's face. Ying Qiong stomped her foot and said angrily, "Tui, despicable. Xiao Chun, this misjudged you. You are just a selfish, vile person with an even more venomous mouth." Xiao Chun smiled faintly and said unconcernedly, "Many thanks for the praise." To be able to receive such praise from the magnanimous Miss Ying, this Xiao feels ashamed of his inferiority. Xiao Chun purposely emphasized the words magnanimous. Ying Qiong's face turned completely red. She could no longer remain here. She glared at Xiao Chun and ran far away, gritting her teeth in hatred. Ao Jiao, who was in the Immortal Spirit Ring, laughed so hard that she could not close her mouth. She said, "Xiao Chun, when did you become such a venomous snake? You even bully a weak girl like that." "Weak girl?" Xiao Chun was flabbergasted. "Do you think that a girl who can find my weakness perfectly, making me make a promise, and end up in such a sorry state, is a weak girl? Since I made my debut, aside from chu-chowing once or twice, she is the only one who can scheme against me." Ao Jiao thought about it carefully and realized that this was indeed the case. Xiao Chun had always been cautious and meticulous. Even when he was in all sorts of dangerous situations, he would always calculate the consequences. Along the way, although every step he took was filled with danger, the number of times he was schemed against could be counted on one hand. Jumping down from the stone pillar, Xiao Chun looked around and said, "Let's not talk about her anymore. I'm going to start preparing to concoct pills. I'm basically satisfied with this trip. I've finally collected all the ingredients for the breakthrough sage pill. Xiao Chun did not tell Ao Jiao everything about Immortal Dao alchemy and the secrets of the compendium of cultivation. He only said that he obtained an ancient book when he was young. Ao Jiao also knew that everyone had their own secrets. After hearing Xiao Qin's explanation a long time ago, she didn't ask much. With a wave of his hand, Xiao Chun sent out a few streams of energy, forming a circle around the surrounding stones. Then, he used his saber chi to carve out a simple stone table and laid out the materials one by one. With a flip of his hand, the blue dragon medicine cauldron appeared. Xiao Chun placed it on the stone table and looked at the blue dragon medicine cauldron. The image of an old friend immediately appeared in his mind. He wondered how Feng Feishue was doing after they parted that day. There were too many unresolved matters of the past. Perhaps it was time to return to the Sky Dome realm, the place where the story began. These thoughts flashed in Xiao Chen's mind. He did not rush to refine the breakthrough sage pill. Instead, he took out another set of ingredients, intending to refine some ordinary medicinal pills to get a feel for it. On the other side at the foot of the stone mountain, Ying Qiong also cast aside all distracting thoughts and focused on merging the two painting pieces. The two of them were both working hard to advance to martial sage. Their desire to advance to martial sage was no weaker than the other. After the morning glow scattered, it gathered again. The setting sun turned bright red. The days at the foot of the stone mountain passed very quickly. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. Before the stone table, Xiao Chun revealed an excited expression. 2 golden medicinal pills lay quietly in the jade bottle under the mouth of the blue dragon medicine cauldron. The surface of the medicinal pills was golden like paint. A fragrance wafted out, forming a golden cloud above Xiao Chen's head that lingered for a long time. Naturally, the breakthrough sage pill that countless cultivators of the Kunlun realm yearned for but could not obtain was in the jade bottle. Unexpectedly, he succeeded in refining 2 sets of ingredients. Even Xiao Chun himself had not expected this. Normally speaking, the success rate of refining the breakthrough sage pill was only 50%. Hence, Xiao Chun prepared 2 sets of ingredients. However, even so, if one's luck was extremely bad, one might not even be able to refine a single breakthrough sage pill. The principle behind this was easy to explain. For example, if one prepared 10 sets of ingredients, based on the success rate, one would succeed 5 times but also fail 5 times. Extremely bad luck meant that the first 2 pills that one refined happened to be among the 5 that failed. However, Xiao Chen's luck this time was so good that even he did not expect it. He succeeded twice in refining 2 times in a row. Xiao Chun waved his long sleeves and swept away all the remaining ingredients on the stone table. Then, he held a breakthrough sage pill in his palm. His excited emotions slowly calmed down. The breakthrough sage pill greatly increased one's chances of advancing to martial sage. However, it did not mean that one would definitely advance to martial sage. The more crucial the moment, the more one could not be careless. On the stone pillar, Ying Qiong wiped the sweat off her forehead. As she looked at the perfectly merged core painting piece before her, she revealed a gratified expression. She could not help but look up, wanting to see the situation on Xiao Chen's side. When she saw the golden clouds in the sky, she said softly, "Auspicious clouds turning golden. This is a mysterious phenomenon that only appears in legends." It looks like he really succeeded in refining the breakthrough sage pill. However, even with the breakthrough sage pill, there was no guarantee that Xiao Chun would advance to martial sage. Xiao Chun did not know whether he could grasp this opportunity or not. Ying Qiong withdrew her gaze and looked at the core painting piece that was glowing with light. Whether she could advance to martial sage or not would depend on this gamble. Xiao Chun sat cross-legged on the stone table. Without hesitation, he placed the breakthrough sage pill in his mouth and slowly chewed it. The medicinal pill was slightly bitter and definitely not tasty. However, its fragrance filled the mouth and spread out, clearing one's mind. When the medicinal pill was completely chewed, Xiao Chen's throat moved for a while before he swallowed it down. Boom! It was like a flame was burning. Xiao Chen's face immediately flushed red. Then, the redness quickly spread throughout his body. A berserk energy spread throughout his body, advancing rapidly. Xiao Chen calmed himself and slowly gathered the scattered golden energy. With his hard work, this berserk energy slowly cooled down and became controllable. Xiao Chen did not panic in the face of trouble and did not panic in the face of trouble. At this moment, his good mental state and cultivation were on full display. He also received good returns. The berserk medicinal energy of the breakthrough sage pill gathered into a surging river. Xiao Chun controlled this river to attack the bottleneck of peak half-sage. Invisibly, the door of sages that he had seen many times appeared in front of him. A small crack appeared on the door. A faint radiance came out. The mysterious world behind the crack in the door was currently beckoning to Xiao Chun. Bang! Under Xiao Chen's control, the golden river surged and attacked the bottleneck of half-sage in his body for the first time. The door of sages shook a few times but did not move at all. Xiao Chan felt his internal organs tremble. Blood leaked out of the corner of his lips. There was a price to pay for using a medicinal pill to forcefully break through to sage. The churning of his internal organs and the pain coming from his bones and muscles were the manifestation of this price. At this point, Xiao Chun no longer had a way out. He could only charge forward continuously. If he charged forward, everything would be clear. If he cowered in fear, he would be destined to be mediocre for the rest of his life. He would not be fated with the great Tao. After the repeated attempts, the medicinal energy of the breakthrough sage pill slowly decreased. However, Xiao Chen's obsession did not diminish. His hot-bloodedness did not subside. The thought of giving up never appeared in his heart. There were only a few gambles in life. Some people did not even have the chance to gamble. I, Xiao Chun, am very lucky to obtain the breakthrough sage pill. How can I give up so easily? Boom! After several more attempts, Xiao Chun suddenly felt relaxed. The bottleneck of peak half-sage shattered with a bang. The door of sages in the formless world seemed to be gently pushed by someone. It suddenly opened, and a bright light poured out. The blood at the corner of Xiao Chen's lips had not dried yet. However, an indescribable joy appeared on his face. I succeeded. The calm of peak half-sage was broken. The door of sages opened. At this moment, Xiao Chun transcended mortality and became a sage. He advanced to martial sage at the age of 23. A bright light spread out from Xiao Chen's body, and a boundless amount of spiritual energy spread out from his body. Then, it formed a multicolored pillar of light soaring into the sky. A resplendent purple heavenly sage law, as thick as a thumb, appeared behind Xiao Chun, followed by another. When Xiao Chun advanced to martial sage, all his quintessence would turn into heavenly sage laws. With this, he would be able to use the heavenly sage laws as he pleased. From now on, the only advantage he had over inferior grade martial sages would no longer exist. The heavenly sage laws appeared continuously. As electric light flickered, they merged. They looked like a river of electricity gushing endlessly. Only after 300 thumb-thick heavenly sage laws appeared did they stop. Xiao Chun suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes were as deep as autumn water, radiating the light of wisdom and boundless spirituality. A kilometer away, Ying Qiong, who was encased in a five-colored pillar of light, opened her eyes almost at the same time. Her originally beautiful face now glowed with radiance. She was a beauty that could topple the world, a peerless beauty. Coincidentally, Xiao Chun and Ying Qiong advanced to martial sage one after the other, almost at the same time. However, the changes to Ying Qiong's body were much greater than Xiao Chen's. She was not a cultivator who tempered her body. The instant she advanced to martial sage, her physical body advanced to a rank 1 sage body, undergoing an earth-shattering improvement. Xiao Chen's physical body was already a rank 2 sage body long ago. This advancement only brought his rank 2 sage body to its peak. He did not make any further breakthroughs, so he did not seem to have changed much. On the other hand, Xiong's skin was as soft as water. She looked like a painting, and her beauty was outstanding. Her previous noble aura was even more holy, inviolable. She looked like a flower in the moon, very beautiful. With a flip of his hand, the lunar shadow saber appeared in Xiao Chen's left hand. A fighting spirit blazed in his eyes as he looked at the other party. A mysterious wooden umbrella appeared in Xiong's delicate hand. She grasped it and pointed it at Xiao Chen. A similar fighting spirit blazed in her eyes. The two did not really want to fight to the death. Instead, they wanted to familiarize themselves with this energy after advancing to martial sage. To each of them, both sides were obviously ideal opponents, and there was nothing more suitable than using them to test their current strength. Electric light flashed under Xiao Chen's feet, and he drew the lunar shadow saber. The heavenly sage laws behind him absorbed the spiritual energy that was everywhere. With the help of the purple heavenly sage laws, the spiritual energy turned into lightning-attributed energy without the need to filter it. It flowed around Xiao Chen's body like a great river, gushing endlessly. Chapter 827. What a strong force! The speed at which it changes is also unexpectedly fast. Xiao Chen rejoiced in his heart. He waved his hand, and a large purple saber light shot out in all directions like lightning. Dang! The umbrella gently tapped, and Xiong accurately struck the weak spot of the saber strike. The gentle water-attributed energy in his body moved slowly. It was thin and silent, but it flowed endlessly. Xiao Chen raised his eyebrows and thought to himself, "Good." Then he quickly spun around and executed the starting stance of the lightning tribulation saber technique. A purple light flashed on Xiao Chen's forehead. The light of his will, combined with the berserk lightning-attributed energy, formed a strong might and pressed down on Xiong. When the saber descended, lightning tore through the clouds in the sky. This saber strike was like a bolt of lightning tearing through the air. It was very powerful. Xiong did not panic. He suddenly opened the umbrella in his hand. Bang! When the entire umbrella opened, it moved all the water-attributed spiritual energy behind him, not leaving a single drop behind. When the umbrella opened, a circular water screen spanning a kilometer formed a huge barrier, firmly enclosing Xiong. If seen from a distance, the circular water screen looked like an incredibly huge umbrella in the air. It opened together with the umbrella in Xiong's hand. When the berserk energy in Xiao Chen's saber strike struck the circular water screen, it immediately scattered and turned into bolts of electricity, crackling and flickering. After easily resolving Xiao Chen's saber strike, Xiong smiled faintly. He twisted his right hand, and the umbrella immediately closed up. The umbrella-shaped water screen in the air also closed up, but did not disappear. Xiong pointed with the umbrella, and the closed water screen stabbed at Xiao Chen like a spear. In an instant, Xiao Chen's figure flashed and brushed by Xiao Chen's shoulder. The closed water screen landed on the ground and stabbed deeply into it. The two exchanged moves in midair, familiarizing themselves with their strength after advancing to martial sage. Compared to Xiao Chen, although Xiong looked at ease, he did not have many opportunities to counterattack, doing his best to defend. After exchanging another 100 moves, Xiao Chen executed the lightning tribulation saber technique. The might of the earthly lightning tribulation, the heavenly lightning tribulation, and the divine lightning tribulation had more than doubled. However, the umbrella in Xiong's hand clearly had a great origin. It was a heaven-defying item for defense. It could withstand 3 great lightning tribulations and still remain unscathed. Just as Xiao Chen was about to execute twin dragons playing with pearls, Xiong closed up the umbrella and landed on the stone pillar below. He smiled and said, "That's enough. If we continue, we will end up making a fool of ourselves." Xiao Chen sheathed his saber and stared at the umbrella. He said, "What is the name of this umbrella?" "It is a good umbrella." "What? Are you eyeing my heavenly downpour umbrella? You do not cultivate the gentle water art. Even if I gave it to you, it would be useless." Ying Xiong leaned the umbrella on his right shoulder and smiled gently. Xiao Chun did not know what rank the heavenly downpour umbrella was, but it was at least an inferior grade king grade secret treasure. In the past, Ying Xiong could not bring out much of the might of this secret treasure. Now, it seems like he cannot bring out the full power of this umbrella. Otherwise, it should be able to block 70% of my strength. Xiao Chun quickly analyzed the situation in his heart. The disciples of large clans should have king-grade secret treasures. In the future, when I face the successors of sovereign sects and sovereign noble clans, I will have to be careful. Without replying to Ying Xiong, Xiao Chun stretched out his hand, and the 72 universe flags buried deep in the ground quickly returned to Xiao Chun's hand. Ying Xiong gently jumped down and landed before Xiao Chun. He said, let's go. Xiao Chun was slightly stunned. He smiled and said, I am returning to the Haotian sect. Are you coming with me? Could it be that there is no place for you in the Ying clan? Ying Xiong felt it was strange. He asked, returning to the Haotian sect? You are in such a rush to advance to martial sage. Could it be that it is not for the Sage Mark Monument that appears once every 10 years? There is still half a month before it opens, and you're going back just like that? Sage Mark Monument? Ao Jiao, what is that? This was the first time Xiao Chun heard these words. He could not help feeling suspicious, so he asked about Ao Jiao. The Sage Mark Monument is about to open? In that case, Xiao Chun, it looks like you will not be able to return for the time being. That Sage Mark Monument stands in the Kunlun mountain range. It has existed since the ancient era and appears once every 10 years. As long as one can carve their name on it, they are qualified to enter. There are many treasures in there. Furthermore, even if one fails to obtain it, there will not be any danger to one's life. At most, one will be sent out. Even if one is unlucky, one will be able to obtain a few good sage-grade secret treasures. Only inferior-grade martial sages are allowed to carve their name on it. Of course, whether one can carve their name on it or not is another matter. Speaking of which, this Sage Mark Monument has existed for a long time. Being able to carve one's name on it is an honor recognized by the peak cultivators. When Xiao Chun heard Ao Jiao's explanation, he entered deep thought. Originally, he had intended to think of a way to return to the Sky Dome realm after returning to the Haotian sect. He would settle some matters of the past and meet some old friends. After that, he would have nothing to worry about and focus on the martial Dao, breaking through to martial emperor. Unexpectedly, the Sage Mark Monument happened to appear. This made Xiao Chun somewhat hesitant. Ao Jiao Egamon, go on then. Back then, the Thunder King also carved his name on it. However, it was on the same level as the Qing emperors. Don't you want to try and see how high you can carve your name on it? The demonic geniuses of the various races have been stuck at half-sage for so many years. With the heavenly dew divine spring, they must have already advanced to martial sage. This time, the Sage Mark Monument's appearance will definitely attract all the various races over. The most important thing is that there are spirit veins in there. Look at the lunar cassia tree in the Immortal Spirit Ring. It will take at least 300 years for it to mature. With a few rank 1 spirit veins, it will definitely mature in 3 to 5 years. The last sentence thoroughly moved Xiao Chun. If he fought for spirit veins outside, he would have to face Grandmaster-level martial sages at the very least. There would be no hope at all. If there really were spirit veins in this Sage Mark Monument, as long as he faced martial sages of the same cultivation realm, Xiao Chun would be very confident. When Ying Xiong saw Xiao Chun remain silent, he thought of something and said, You have only been in the Kunlun realm for 2 years. It is not strange that you have not heard of the Sage Mark Monument. Xiao Chun denied this. I have heard a little about the Sage Mark Monument. However, aren't you afraid of your clan finding out that you are swaggering around? Ying Xiong smiled in disappointment and frustration. The struggle between the large clans is not as straightforward as you imagine. When I meet with that Ying fan, I might even act even more intimate than before. Xiao Chun frowned slightly. His words actually meant that he wanted to use this as an excuse to take his leave. Given the intelligence of this girl, she should be able to understand that he did not want to get into any unnecessary trouble. Let's go then. The Kunlun mountain range runs through the profound domain. It stretches on for who knows how long. Without me leading the way, even if you ask around, you might not be able to find the Sage Mark Monument in half a month. A crafty look flashed in Cheong's eyes as he revealed a faint smile on his face. Don't ask me. It has been so many years. How could I still remember the way? Furthermore, a regular martial monarch would not know where the Sage Mark Monument is. You will still have to travel with her. A.O. Jiao's innocent words from the immortal spirit ring extinguished Xiao Chen's last hope. The Kunlun mountain range stretched from east to west, spanning the entire profound domain. Aside from the main peak that Xiao Chen had been to before, there were countless secondary peaks. Even if one spent 10 years, one would not be able to walk through all the secondary peaks. The Sage Mark Monument was like a drop of water in a lake. It would be hard to follow. Xiao Chen rejoiced. Fortunately, he had Qian with him on this trip. Otherwise, even if he found out the way, he would have to go around in circles, wasting a lot of time. Amid the boundless mountain range, a towering monument towered into the clouds on an ordinary-looking flat ground at the waist of a mountain. There were several peaks of various heights in the surroundings, all of them at least 5 kilometers tall. Clouds and birds lingered around the peaks. Many cultivators of the various races stopped on the various peaks. When one looked around, they were all martial sages. Some of them were not even inferior grade martial sages. All of them had long and deep auras. They should be idle older generation martial sages or the elders of the various sects and clans. Their main purpose here was to see how much the younger generation had grown. To these people, no matter how famous they were, no matter how incredible they were, it was not as realistic as the Sage Mark Monument. Whether one could carve their name on it, how high could one carve it? Whether one could surpass the famous experts of history who had been immortalized for hundreds of generations. Only then could one truly prove one's extraordinary talent. Otherwise, one would just be a fake genius. This was because since ancient times, those famous geniuses in history had all carved their names on the Sage Mark Monument. History had proven their glory. Their legendary feats further emphasized the extraordinariness of the Sage Mark Monument, making it even more famous. Even more cultivators gathered at the foot of the Sage Mark Monument. A rough count came to at least 3,000. Without exception, all of them were inferior grade martial sages. These were all cultivators waiting to carve their names on the Sage Mark Monument. However, with one glance, most of them were middle-aged. There were even quite a few old people. There were very few of the younger generation. However, the older generation experts on the various peaks and the martial monarchs who came to watch the excitement all focused on the younger generation. The reason was none other than these youths being the main characters of this Sage Mark Monument's opening. The old men and middle-aged martial sages were just supporting characters. Even if these people felt dissatisfied, they could not change this fact. Cultivators who could advance to inferior grade martial sage before the age of 30 were definitely demonic geniuses. They would only appear in large numbers in the age of geniuses. In a normal age, when one appeared, they would immediately become an outstanding talent that would lead an era. These people did not look very old. However, they could easily defeat those of higher cultivation, not to mention ordinary late-stage inferior grade martial sages. Even if a medial grade martial sage came, he would not be able to do anything to these youths in a one-on-one fight. If he was not careful, he might end up capsizing, ruining his reputation. There was a faint golden barrier 100 meters away from the stone tablet, preventing others from approaching.